Chapter 2075. When they heard Yi Xian's words, their expressions became strange. In their opinion, there was definitely someone behind Yi Xian. Otherwise, it was impossible for an independent cultivator to cultivate to such a level. No matter how monstrous he was, he still needed resources. They would never believe that Yi Xian did not have a powerful background. Bai Yi thought about it and said, "Brother Yi, do you think they will let it go just because we have Xiao Ta?" "No. They will never let it go. They don't have time to care about you now, but once they do, they will definitely eliminate you." Nan Ning nodded. "Young Master Yi, if you don't do anything to them, they will." Yi Xian glanced at them and sneered in his heart. The powers behind these two wanted to use him as a spear to fight against the ancient race. Yi Xian retracted his thoughts and smiled. "Let me think about it." "Think about it." With that, he turned around and disappeared into the horizon on his sword. He was so fast that by the time they reacted, Yi Xian had vanished without a trace. This time, he didn't refuse directly. He had to leave some hope for these forces. Otherwise, they would not let it go. Seeing Yi Xian leave, Bai Yi frowned slightly. Nan Ning suddenly said, "Young Master Yi is a smart man. It's not realistic for us to use him to fight against the ancient race." Bai Yi nodded. "Let them handle it themselves." The two left. Actually, they didn't want to get involved in this matter. This was a matter between worlds. Once they got involved, they would be doomed if they weren't careful. Ancient world. At this moment, the ancient race had entered the highest state of alert. Not only that, but all the ancient race experts had returned to the ancient race. Even the old monsters of the ancient race who were in closed-door cultivation had come out. Getting Xiao Ta was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the ancient race. As long as the ancient race survived, there would be only one ancient world in the future. Of course, they knew that the other 5 worlds would not let it go. If they survived, the ancient world would be invincible. If they could not endure it, there might be no more ancient worlds in the world. But all the ancient race experts chose to take a gamble. After Yi Xian and Bai Yi parted ways, he arrived at the peak of a mountain. He looked down at the vast mountain range with a calm expression. After a moment, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Calm your mind. Needless to say, he really liked this state. After entering this state, he felt like a true swordsman, a swordsman with only the sword in his heart. Swordsman. The heart is the core. If the heart could not be calm, the sword could not be calm. In fact, he was a little confused at this moment. Ever since he had chosen not to break the circle but to enter the circle, he had parted ways with the mainstream body cultivators. Now, the embodiment of bliss and the break world had nothing to do with him. Confusion. After entering the circle, he would have to explore his future on his own. It was especially easy to fall into confusion. It was not difficult to walk the path of others, but it was extremely difficult to carve out one's own path. And now, he had reached a bottleneck. Calm his mind. This was what he had comprehended after entering the circle. What about after calming his mind? Yi Xian slowly opened his eyes and looked into the distance. After a long time, he opened his left hand, and the green profound sword appeared in his hand. He smiled slightly. "Little soul, what do you think I should do from now on?" Little soul was silent for a long time, then said, "Walk while standing." Yi Xian's face immediately darkened. It was all this Xiao Ta's fault, leading Little Soul into being fancy. Little Soul suddenly said, "Young master, are you interested in developing your soul?" Yi Xian was a little curious. "Soul?" Little Soul said, "Yes. As long as you are a living creature, you will have a soul. Young master has the soul fixation sword that Sister Tianming taught you. If you develop in this direction, you should have a good future." Soul fixation sword. Yi Xian frowned slightly. "How do I develop?" Little Soul said, "Young master, I'm just a sword. How would I know?" Yi Xian's expression froze. Damn, this damn Xiao Ta. A moment later, Yi Xian looked at the green profound sword in his hand. Soul fixation sword. How could he make soul fixation sword even more awesome? Yi Xian was silent for a long time, then said, I don't want to think about it. I'll find Qing, and ask her some other day. Little Soul hesitated, then said, Young master, isn't your goal to surpass Sister Tianming and the others? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Little Soul said, then you should walk your own path. Yi Xian said seriously, you don't understand. I'll first follow the path of Qing, and Dad. When I reach the end of their path, I'll create a brand new sword Dao to surpass them. Do you understand? Little Soul was silent for a moment, then said, what you mean is, in the secular world, a rich second generation does not choose to start a business, but chooses to inherit the family business first, and then start a business on the basis of his father's wealth, and finally surpass his father, right? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment. Your analogy, Little Soul suddenly smiled and said, Young master, that seems to work. But young master, I still think you should walk your own path. Yi Xian said with a smile, why? Little Soul thought for a moment, then said, because I think, if you walk the path of Sister Tianming and your father, I'm afraid it will be very difficult to surpass them on this path. Yi Xian was silent. Little Soul giggled. Do you think what I said makes sense? Yi Xian said with a smile, makes sense. Hey, I'll work hard. If I really can't do it, then let my son do it. My son is invincible, and it's no different from me being invincible. Little Soul reminded him, Young master, I've heard of those who rely on their fathers, but I haven't heard of those who rely on their sons. Yi Xian, without any more nonsense with Little Soul, Yi Xian walked down the mountain range below. He walked very slowly because he was thinking. What he said just now was naturally a joke. His goal in this life was to surpass his father and Qing. As for his son, even if he had a son in the future, he would not let his son work so hard. Of course, he would never let his son live so easily. Leave him alone. He had already thought it through. The fine tradition of the Yang family could not be broken in his hands. Before he knew it, Yi Xian had walked to the bottom of the mountain, and he came to a small stream. How to surpass Qing, and his father. As Little Soul said, he couldn't follow the path of his father and Qing, to the end, because if he kept following them, he would certainly not surpass them. He was improving, but hadn't his father and Qing improved? He had to think of a way to overtake them. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. In fact, he did not know what level his current combat power was. Of course, even if he had to fight with someone in the break realm, he would not be afraid. However, he did not know if he could win. Right now, he still had the strongest trump card that he had not used, which was the power of the myriad realms and the power of the myriad realms. The instant of life and death that he had created could only be developed to the extreme after being supported by the power of the myriad realms and the power of the myriad realms. But so far, he had not played it like this. Right now, he was only using momentum, sword momentum, bloodline power, and fighting spirit. He also wanted to see the power of his ultimate sword strike. His biggest problem now was how to go further. The realm of daylight. Yi Xian suddenly thought of this place. This place was the complete opposite of the time in Xiao Ta's body, which could make time pass quickly. Thinking of this, Yi Xian suddenly had an idea in his mind. Why didn't he develop in this aspect of time? One sword strike to cut off lifespan. Thinking of this, Yi Xian immediately turned around and disappeared on the spot. Yi Xian once again went to the spirit realm. Inside the palace, he began to ask Ling Tian about the realm of daylight. For Yi Xian, Ling Tianyi did not hold back and told him everything he knew. After Yi Xian entered the realm of daylight, although he did not have Xiao Ta, the mysterious power of the realm of daylight had no effect on him. This was because he had the Qingxian sword. It ignored all the power of time and space. Yi Xian began to try to use the Qingxian sword to control the mysterious power of the realm of darkness. he found that the Qingxian sword could control the power of the realm of darkness. It should be said that the power of the realm of darkness was afraid of the Qingxian sword because the Qingxian sword could easily destroy the power of the realm of darkness. However, Yi Xian was also very careful because he could not come into contact with the power of the realm of darkness. If he came into contact with it, his life force would quickly disappear. The higher one's realm was, the longer one's lifespan would be. Theoretically speaking, under normal circumstances, as long as there were no accidents, it would be very difficult for an expert at the free transformation realm and the breaking realm to die. Although it couldn't be said to be immortal, experts like them had extremely long lifespans. However, this kind of powerhouse usually went into seclusion for hundreds of years or even longer. Therefore, time was extremely short to them. Most of the time, even 1,000 years would pass in the blink of an eye to them, severing his lifespan with one slash. This was what Yi Xian was thinking at the moment. The reason why the break-world plane was strong was because he could use the spacetime within the day-night realm to send someone in, causing their lifespan to decrease rapidly. To put it simply, he was using time to kill his target. And he could use the green profound sword to draw out the power of the day-night realm. To put it simply, he could directly use the spacetime power and did not need to bring people into the day-night realm. Although he was not at the breaking realm, he could do everything that a breaking realm expert could do. Not only that, but he could also do things that a breaking realm expert could not do. Because a breaking realm expert had to send someone into the day-night realm to use the spacetime power of the day-night realm to consume their lifespan, he could bring out the spacetime power of the day-night realm. He was even more simple and direct. In the following time, Yi Xian began to study the spacetime power in the day-night realm. Because he had the green profound sword, he did not encounter too many obstacles. 5 days later, Yi Xian had successfully drawn the power of the day-night realm from the day-night realm to the current spacetime. However, he encountered a new problem, which was how to make this power of the day-night realm exert its greatest power. With one slash of the sword, the opponent would die on the spot. This was his goal. Chapter 2076. The Spiritual Dimension. Yi Xian stood in a bamboo forest with his eyes closed. He held the sheathed azure sword in his left hand, and he seemed to be in a meditative state. Meditation. At this moment, Yi Xian had entered a meditative state, and everything around him seemed to have quietened down. Everything was clear. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly flicked his thumb. The azure sword was unsheathed. In an instant, the bamboo forest that Yi Xian stood in grew at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. In less than half a breath's time, the entire bamboo forest had grown by a few hundred times, and it didn't take long for the bamboo forest to wither and transform into dust. In this instant, the bamboo forest had experienced a short period of almost 1,000 years. 1,000 years with a single strike. Yi Xian hurriedly put away the azure sword with an extremely solemn expression. Needless to say, this had exceeded his expectations. He hadn't expected the flow energy to be so terrifying. Apart from himself, with him as the center, the space within a radius of several li rapidly flowed by for nearly 1,000 years. 1,000 years. What did this mean? It was terrifying. Even Yi Xian himself felt terrified. Because a moment of carelessness had really caused him to die on the spot. However, this was far from enough. Because a lifespan of 1,000 years wasn't much to many top-rate experts. Nowadays, some experts could easily live for a few million years. So what was 1,000 years? Nothing at all. Of course, he had a way to deal with it. He'd only tested it with that strike earlier, and he hadn't used too much of the flow energy. In any case, with the azure sword, not only could he directly connect to the day-night realm, he could even borrow the flow energy from the day-night realm. Meanwhile, Ling Tian suddenly appeared by Yi Xian's side. She glanced at the surroundings before looking at Yi Xian with an extremely solemn expression. "You're able to draw out the flow energy from the day-night realm?" Yi Xian nodded, "Yes." Ling Tian spoke in a low voice, "How did you do it?" Yi Xian waved the azure sword in his hand. Ling Tian frowned. Your father made this sword for you? Yi Xian shook his head. My sister gave it to me. Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian. Sister? Yi Xian nodded. How is it? Awesome, right? Ling Tian shook his head slightly. It's not just powerful. This was terror. Incomparably terrifying. Previously, there were people who wanted to draw out the power of spacetime from the White Day realm, but in the end, everyone gave up. Do you know why? Yi Xian was curious. Why? Ling Tian said solemnly, because it's impossible. Yi Xian frowned. I think it's very simple. Look, I easily lured it out. No difficulty at all. Ling Tian's face twitched. Why don't you try using your sword? Yi Xian was speechless. Ling Tian continued. Do you know why everyone gave up? Because in order to draw out the power of spacetime, there must be a medium. It's equivalent to building a bridge between this world's spacetime and the White Day realm spacetime. In order to accomplish this, some people used countless divine objects in hopes of using these divine objects as a medium to draw out the power of spacetime from the White Day realm. But in the end, they realized that no divine object was able to endure the power of spacetime, so they could only give up. When she spoke up to this point, she glanced at the azure sword in Yi Xian's hand and said, Your sword is actually so terrifying. It's able to endure the power of spacetime. As she spoke, she glanced at Yi Xian. Your sister isn't weak, right? Yi Xian blinked. She's a little stronger than me. Ling Tian rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. It shouldn't be just a little. Yi Xian chuckled and said, Elder Ling Tian, does that mean that I'm the first person to draw out the power of spacetime from the White Day realm? Ling Tian nodded. She looked at the azure sword in Yi Xian's hand. How much power can your sword endure? Yi Xian glanced at the azure sword and smiled. Limitless. Limitless. Ling Tian was visibly moved. Limitless? Yi Xian nodded. Ling Tian took a deep look at Yi Xian. You're going to be invincible. Needless to say, she was extremely shocked at this moment. Limitless. What did this mean? It meant that Yi Xian was like carrying a White Day realm with him. Moreover, he could use the power of spacetime limitlessly. Who could withstand Yi Xian's attack? Even if they could block Yi Xian's first attack, what about the second and third attacks? It had to be known that every time they blocked Yi Xian's attack, it was like losing a life. Fighting with Yi Xian was really playing with their lives. The more they thought about it, the more terrified they became. Right now, although Yi Xian wasn't in the breaking world realm, he was much scarier than that. Yi Xian smiled and said, Elder Ling Tian, I'm leaving. Ling Tian was a little bit shocked. Leaving? Yi Xian nodded. If I stay here, I'm afraid I'll bring trouble to the spiritual world. Ling Tian hesitated and said, Where are you going? Yi Xian smiled. You'll know soon enough. After that, he rode his sword and disappeared. When Yi Xian left the spiritual world, an old man in a white robe appeared in front of him. The old man in a white robe smiled. Young Master Yi, I am the leader of the mountain realm, Sumikong. Can we talk? Yi Xian smiled. Of course. The white-robed old man roared with laughter, and then he said, Young Master Yi, I've come here this time because I want to confirm something. Is the tiny pagoda really that miraculous? Yi Xian blinked. Why do you ask when you already know the answer? The old man in a white robe sighed. I never thought that there would be such a terrifying divine weapon in this world. Yi Xian smiled and didn't say anything. The old man in a white robe looked at Yi Xian and said seriously, Young friend Yi, the ancient dimension actually tried to seize your Xiao Ta in broad daylight. Such actions are truly inhumane and shameful. My mountain realm and the heavenly dimension have decided to uphold justice and help you seize back Xiao Ta. We'll return peace to the 6 dimensions. Yi Xian blinked, and then he gave a thumbs up. Good. Very good. The old man in a white robe looked at Yi Xian and waited for Yi Xian to continue. However, Yi Xian didn't. The old man's expression froze. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Young friend, you don't seem to be very enthusiastic." Yi Xian sighed softly. Patriarch Kong, the ancient race, is one of the 6 races of the current era, and it's an extraordinary power. Look at me. What am I? I'm just a little swordsman without any backing. How would I go against the ancient race? When he spoke up to hear, he sighed heavily once more and said, "Senior, all of you don't understand the sorrow of nobodies like us. Nobodies like us without any backing have to rely on ourselves for everything, and it's very difficult for us to live." Sumi Kong glanced at Yi Xian. "Young friend, you don't seem like an independent cultivator without any backing. Yi Xian laughed bitterly. "You don't even know how I got here. Talking about it makes me cry." Tears. Sumi Kong frowned. Why is this fellow so stubborn? Meanwhile, Yi Xian spoke abruptly. "Patriarch Kong, I know what all of you mean. All of you can use my name to deal with the ancient race, but I will absolutely not act against them. Of course, even if I do act, I'm unable to help all of you at all with my strength." The meaning behind his words was that they could do whatever they wanted, and he, Yi Xian, wouldn't get involved. Sumi Kong thought about it for a long time before he smiled and said, "Of course, we understand young friend Yi. However, we might have to use young friend Ye's name. After all, Xiao Ta is young friend Ye's." Yi Xian suddenly said, "Senior Sumi Kong, how about this? I'll sell Xiao Ta to you for 5-star veins." Xiao Ta was speechless. Sumi Kong frowned slightly. "Sell him to us?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes. I'll sell him to you." Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian. "That Xiao Ta doesn't seem to be in your hands." Yi Xian said seriously, "Senior, if you're willing to pay 5-star veins, then I'll sell Xiao Ta to you. To put it simply, Xiao Ta will be yours in name. This way, when you target the ancient race, it will be more justifiable. When you make your clansmen risk their lives, they will be even more willing because your clansmen will think, fuck, this was originally our Sumi race. The ancient race actually dared to steal something from our Sumi race." Speaking up to hear, he smiled and said, "Senior, do you think these 5-star veins are worth it?" Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian, and then he smiled and said, "Young friend, what you say is very correct. This method is very good." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Then these star veins." Sumi Kong blinked and said, "Young friend, I feel that you should listen to my opinion first. If we tell the world that young friend is someone from our Sumi realm, wouldn't that be even more justifiable? Then, if you suddenly die, our Sumi realm will say that you were killed by the ancient race. Isn't that better?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "Good. Very good." Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian with a smile on his face, but a powerful aura directly locked onto Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, "If Senior feels that 5-star veins are very expensive, then please kill me. I won't resist, really." Sumi Kong slightly frowned. Not resisting. Yi Xian's expression was very calm, and there was even a smile on his face. Sumi Kong was silent. This youth in front of him was fearless. Why was he so fearless? Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian and smiled as he said, "Young friend, didn't you say that you don't have any backing?" Yi Xian blinked and said, "It is true that I don't have any backing. I also don't have any backing. From the start of my cultivation until now, it was all my own hard work. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Including the fact that I instantly killed the free embodiment transformation expert of the ancient race. That strength was all from my own cultivation. I really didn't rely on my family, nor did I rely on my master. Really, it was all from my own hard work." Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian and did not say anything. Yi Xian continued to say, "Senior, you really don't have to worry about anything. I'm just a lone person. If you kill me, the Sumi race won't provoke any other mysterious faction. Don't worry, come. Kill me, I definitely won't resist. Sumi Kong. P.S. Asking for votes. Asking for votes. I exploded out a long time ago. Chapter 2077. Sumi Kong's expression was somewhat gloomy. Could Yi Xian have cultivated by himself? He naturally did not believe it. A person without resources would never be able to reach this stage. Moreover, that Xiao Ta was so heaven-defying. He had never appeared in the 6 realms before, so how could he appear in Yi Xian? Not simple. Thinking to hear, Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian and smiled slightly. Little friend, what are you saying? Didn't I say it just now? If. That is if. My Xian race has no grievances with little friend, so why would we target little friend? Our common enemy is the ancient race. What do you think? Yi Xian smiled and said, Senior, what do you think of my suggestion just now? If you are willing to give me 5-star veins, I can announce to the outside world that Xiao Ta is from the Xian race. I can even prove it to the ancient race, as long as you give me 5-star veins. 5-star veins. Sumi Kong was silent. Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, if Senior is not willing, then I will go talk to the heaven realm and have them stand on the moral high ground. At that time, Sumi Kong suddenly pointed his finger, and a storage ring flew in front of Yi Xian. There were exactly 5-star veins in the spatial ring. Sumi Kong smiled and said, little friend, Xiao Ta is now from my Xian race. Yi Xian put away the spatial ring and nodded. It's yours. Sumi Kong suddenly smiled and said, little friend, did you come to the 6 realms alone? Of course not. When Yi Xian said this, he quickly stopped and then said, of course I came alone. Sometimes, one had to say the opposite for others to believe. Yi Xian was sometimes very confused about this society. If you told the truth, no one would believe you. If you told a lie, they would believe you. Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian and then smiled and said, little friend, we will meet again. After saying this, he turned and disappeared. Yi Xian looked into the distance, then turned and left. High up in the clouds, Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian's departing figure and frowned. No one knew what he was thinking. Beside him was an old man. The old man wore a cloud-colored robe. His hands were behind his back, and his expression was cold. This person was the Tian clan leader, Tian Chan. Tian Chan suddenly said, you gave him 5-star veins just like that? Sumi Kong smiled and said, I think it's quite worth it. Tian Chan shook his head. I don't like him. Sumi Kong said with a smile, I don't like it either, but there's nothing we can do. Just like he said, we need to have a good reason. Otherwise, what excuse can we use to declare war on the ancient race? After a moment of silence, Tian Chan said, is Xiao Ta's ability really that overpowered? Sumi Kong's expression gradually turned serious. It should be right. Otherwise, the ancient realm wouldn't do this. Tian Chan said solemnly, then we can't give them too much time. Sumi Kong nodded. I'm not worried about the ancient race, but the nether race and the celestial race. Saying this, he turned his head and looked. I'm afraid that the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Tian Chan frowned. At this moment, Sumi Kong said, contact them and see what their attitude is. If they work together, of course it'll be great. If they don't. Saying this, he sneered. Then everyone just wait and watch the ancient race grow. Tian Chan nodded. I'll go to the nether race. You go to the celestial race. Saying this, he turned and left. Sumi Kong also disappeared on the spot. On the other side, Yi Xian stopped. He opened his palm and a storage ring appeared in his hand. There were 27 star veins in the storage ring. 27 star veins. Yi Xian's lips curled up and he put away the storage ring. He actually needed a lot of star veins. Every time he cultivated, he needed to consume a large amount of spiritual qi. The spiritual qi in Xiao Ta's body wasn't enough to support his cultivation. Xiao Ta. Thinking of this, Yi Xian suddenly remembered that Xiao Ta had been taken away. Xiao Ta, Yi Xian wasn't worried. No matter whose hands Xiao Ta ended up in, they definitely wouldn't mistreat Xiao Ta. Of course, he wouldn't really give up on Xiao Ta. Yi Xian looked around and then disappeared on the spot. About a day later, the leaders of the Nether race, Celestial race, Shumi race, and Sky race suddenly gathered in the ancient world. Ancient world. The leader of the ancient race, Gu Ming, appeared in the sky above the ancient world. He looked at Tian Chan and the others and smiled. Leaders, what brings you to my ancient world today? Shumi Kong, who was in the lead, smiled. Leader Gu Ming, I'll get straight to the point. I'm here today to return something to you. Gu Ming narrowed his eyes. Return? Shumi Kong nodded. Yes. To tell you the truth, Yi Xian belongs to the mountain realm. That pagoda of his also belongs to the mountain realm. I don't know how he offended the ancient clan leader, but the ancient clan leader actually wants to steal his pagoda. In short, I asked the ancient Ming clan leader to return the pagoda. Haha. Gu Ming suddenly laughed. Shumi Kong, don't you think your excuse is laughable? Shumi Kong smiled. It looks like leader Gu Ming doesn't believe me. Gu Ming narrowed his eyes. Believe? Shumi Kong, do you think I'm an idiot? Shumi Kong coldly said, if leader Gu Ming doesn't want to return it, then we can only offend you. Gu Ming mockingly said, Shumi Kong, when did you become so hypocritical? If you want to take the tower, then take it. Don't make it sound so grand. Shameless. Shumi Kong coldly said, everyone, let's do it. His voice fell. Boom. Dozens of powerful presences appeared in the sky above the ancient world. They were all break world level. Aside from that, there were hundreds of freedom transformation elites. Clearly, the four races had sent out their elites. Gu Ming's face was calm. Shumi Kong, do you really want to do this? Shumi Kong coldly said, Ancient Ming, if you are willing to hand over Xiao Ta, we will leave immediately. Gu Ming smiled. There is only one tower, and there are four of you. Who should I give it to? Shumi Kong mockingly said, what? Do you want to play such a low-level trick in front of us? Gu Ming smiled. Shumi Kong, I will ask you one last time. Do you really want to be this shameless? Shumi Kong squinted his eyes. He suddenly felt a sense of unease. Something was wrong. The elites of the four races had gathered. Why was the ancient race so calm? This was not normal. At this time, his face changed. He saw the patriarch of the dark race and the patriarch of the god race suddenly disappear. Shumi Kong suddenly turned around and slammed his palm down. Boom! When the palm fell, he fell into an unknown and mysterious space-time abyss. After entering that space-time abyss, a black fist suddenly broke through the air and went straight for his head. Shumi Kong's eyes flashed with anger. He raised his right hand and slammed it down. Boom! When the palm fell, the space-time abyss boiled and was destroyed. It became a black space-time black hole. Shumi Kong's face looked terrible. The one who had attacked him was Underworld leader Nancy. On the other side, Sky leader was being held down by God leader Ku Gon. Betrayal. Shumi Kong's face looked very ugly. At this time, the ancient Ming suddenly laughed coldly. Shumi Kong, do you really think the ancient race is stupid enough to want to take Xiao Ta for ourselves? The ancient Ming knew very well that the small pagoda's allure was too great. The other five races would never give it up, and they definitely wouldn't watch as the ancient race grew bigger. Therefore, the ancient race had to find allies. He chose the strongest of the four races, the underworld and the god. Shumi Kong looked at underworld leader Nancy. Nancy. Nancy said calmly, you have your choice. My underworld race has our choice. Shumi Kong suddenly laughed. Good. Very good. Ha. Gu Ming said calmly, kill. As soon as his voice fell, countless ancient clan experts shot up into the sky and charged towards the Sumer race and the other experts. On the other side, the God race and underworld experts also charged at the Shumi race and Sky race experts. Seeing this, Shumi Kong's eyes flashed with ferocity. Retreat. Return to the world. Return to the world. Although the Sky race and Shumi race had many experts, they could not beat the ancient race and the other two races together. Returning to the Shumi realm, they still had the power to fight. There was a great formation in the Shumi realm. Hearing Shumi Kong's words, the Shumi elites turned around and fled. It was not difficult for the Break World elites to leave. After all, when they were at their level, as long as they did not want to fight, it would take at least 3 Break World elites to keep them here. However, the free embodiment realm experts weren't that strong. In the field, when the Shumi race and Sky race's unrestrained transformed experts retreated, the ancient race and the other two races attacked the unrestrained transformed experts of the Sky race and Shumi race. Slaughter. Without a Break World expert in front of them, the unrestrained transformed experts of the two races were slaughtered. In less than a moment, all the unrestrained transformed experts of the two races were killed. However, the unrestrained transformed experts of the Shumi race and Sky race all retreated. In the field, Gu Ming's face was gloomy. This was because he noticed that the underworld and God race did not really fight the Sky race and Shumi race. Otherwise, they would have killed some Break World experts. Clearly, the underworld and God race were wary of the ancient race. At this time, the underworld race leader Nan Si suddenly looked at the ancient race leader Gu Ming. Look at Xiao Ta. Look at Xiao Ta. The God race leader Ku Gan also looked at Gu Ming. In the field, the atmosphere became tense again. Xiao Ta. All 3 races wanted to keep him in their hands, especially the ancient race. Now that Xiao Ta was in their hands, how could they be willing to hand him over? After a moment of silence, Gu Ming smiled and said, leaders, let's enter the pagoda. As he spoke, he brought Nan Si and Ku Gan into Xiao Ta. When they entered Xiao Ta, their expressions instantly changed. Because they noticed that the time inside Xiao Ta was actually different from the time outside. Wasn't cultivating in their heaven-defying? No, heaven-defying wasn't enough to describe how terrifying Xiao Ta was. Ku Gan and Nan Si glanced at each other, and there was a deep sense of shock in their eyes. At this moment, Nan Si suddenly said, this pagoda has a spirit? Gu Ming nodded. Nan Si glanced at the surroundings and said, Xiao Ta, who created you? After a moment of silence, Xiao Ta's voice resounded. My sister. Her name is Tianming, and she's a blacksmith. She only knows how to forge treasures and doesn't know how to fight. She's extremely weak. She has many treasures in her possession. Do you want to meet her? Chapter 2078. Tianming. Inside Xiao Ta, Nan Si and the other two frowned. They've never heard of this name. Gu Ming asked, Tianming? Who is she? Xiao Ta answered, she's a blacksmith. Gu Ming asked again, why haven't we heard of such a powerful blacksmith? Xiao Ta smiled, she's been hiding it all this time, how did you know? At this time, Nan Si suddenly asked, she has many treasures on her? Xiao Ta answered, yes. Nan Si immediately asked, where is she now? Xiao Ta answered, the Milky Way. Nan Si frowned, the Milky Way? Xiao Ta thought for a moment, then said, a very, very far place, you might not be able to find it, I can lead the way for you. Nan Si and the other two looked at each other in silence. Gu Ming suddenly said, you seem to want us to find her? Xiao Ta smiled bitterly, 3 big shots, my pagoda soul is in her hands, she used it to control me. If you can kill her, I will regain my freedom. At that time, I, Xiao Ta, am willing to serve you 3 big shots. Gu Ming suddenly asked, "What's your relationship with that Yi Xian?" Xiao Ta answered, "He's Sister Tian Ming's brother, ignorant and incompetent, only knows how to act cool." Gu Ming was confused, "That's it?" Xiao Ta answered, "Yes." The three looked at each other in silence. At this time, Ku Gan suddenly said, "You said that Tian Ming who forged you only knows the art of forging, but isn't strong?" Xiao Ta answered, "Yes. She doesn't know how to fight." "Of course," he added in his heart, "she only knows how to kill." Ku Gan's expression was cold. "She reversed the time in this pagoda, and you say she's not strong?" Xiao Ta sighed, "She's strong just because she reversed time. It's just a perverted trick. When you catch her and figure out the theory behind it, you'll know how easy it is to do this. Also, if you want to catch her, you have to be quick, because little mistress." "Oh no, because that Yi Xian might run away with her. Once she hides again, it will be difficult for you to find her again. Don't blame me for not warning you. Her escaping skills are very good. Once she hides, you won't be able to find her." The three of them were silent. Tian Ming. They had never heard of this person. Actually, the three of them were a little tempted. If what Xiao Ta said was true, then this woman named Tian Ming was a treasure trove. However, the three of them still felt that something was amiss. Xiao Ta's words were a little misleading. Nancy suddenly said, "Xiao Ta, what's the background of that woman called Tian Ming?" Xiao Ta was silent. Nancy frowned. "What's wrong?" Xiao Ta said, "I'm just a tower. How could I possibly know so much?" South Priest's expression froze. At this time, the ancient Ming suddenly said, "You too, what do you think?" Ku Gan coldly said, "This Xiao Ta is flowery, his words are not true. We can't trust him completely." Nancy also nodded slightly. He also felt that this Xiao Ta was not reliable. But the ancient Ming said, "I think we can go see that woman." Nancy and Ku Gan looked at the ancient Ming. The ancient Ming solemnly said, "First, if that woman can create a heaven-defying Xiao Ta like Xiao Ta, then she can create other heaven-defying treasures. She must have a lot of treasures on her. Second, even if that woman is powerful, with our strength, even if we can't defeat her, can't we retreat unscathed?" Nancy and Ku Gan were silent. The ancient Ming continued, "Moreover, Sumi Kong and Ku Gan have been in contact with that Yi Xian. There's no guarantee that they won't cooperate. If the Tian clan and Sumi tribe obtain that woman's treasures, it will be extremely disadvantageous to us." Nancy and Ku Gan looked at each other, then nodded. In the end, they still decided to go see that mysterious Tian Ming. Because at the moment, just one Xiao Ta really wasn't enough. Could it be that the three clans would fight? That wouldn't be good. If that Tian Ming had other treasures on her, then this problem would be solved perfectly. Gu Ming glanced at the surroundings and said, "Tiny pagoda, take us to see that woman." Xiao Ta said, "There's no need to see her." The ancient Ming frowned, "What do you mean?" Xiao Ta said, "Find Yi Xian, then she will appear." The ancient Ming said solemnly, "We don't know where Yi Xian is right now." Xiao Ta giggled, "I know, I'll take you to him." Yi Xian, the ancient Ming looked at Xiao Ta, "Then let's go find him." With that, the three of them left Xiao Ta. Under Xiao Ta's lead, the three of them directly left the ancient realm. In the depths of a mountain range, Yi Xian who was cultivating suddenly raised his head, and in the next moment, a Xiao Ta appeared in front of him. Yi Xian was stunned when he saw Xiao Ta, then his expression changed greatly because the three ancient Ming also appeared in front of him. Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. "Xiao Ta, what the hell are you doing?" Xiao Ta said, "Don't talk, watch my performance." "Yi Xian," Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Little soul, come here for a moment." The azure sword trembled slightly, then flew in front of Xiao Ta. Xiao Ta brought Little Soul to the three ancient Ming. "Take this sword and sense it, then you'll be able to sense where she is." Yi Xian, the ancient Ming looked at Xiao Ta in front of him, "Are you sure?" Xiao Ta said, "I'm sure. If she appears later, remember to act quickly, don't let her escape, she's very fast. The three ancient Ming looked at each other. At this time, Ku Gan suddenly said, something's wrong. Nancy's expression was also gloomy, indeed something's wrong. The three looked at the azure sword, and when they saw it, a trace of unease arose in their hearts. At this time, Xiao Ta suddenly said, so, you're afraid. The ancient Ming looked at Xiao Ta, are you trying to provoke us? Xiao Ta said with a smile, no. Whether you find her or not, it's up to you. The three ancient Ming were silent. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly said angrily, Xiao Ta, you actually let them find Qing, You, doesn't your conscience hurt? Xiao Ta said indifferently, I'm just a Ta. Yi Xian said indifferently. Yi Xian suddenly said fiercely, Xiao Ta, she created you, and you actually brought outsiders to find her. I'll kill you. With that, he directly rushed towards Xiao Ta. His speed was very fast, and before Xiao Ta could react, he directly punched him. Bang! Xiao Ta was directly sent flying. The three ancient Ming were dumbfounded. What is he doing? In the distance, Xiao Ta suddenly said, fuck you. Yi Xian was about to attack again, but the ancient Ming directly blocked in front of Yi Xian. He looked at Yi Xian, young Master Yi, watch yourself. Yi Xian coldly looked at the distant Xiao Ta, selling out your master for glory. I look down on you. With that, he looked at the ancient Ming, let me tell you, don't listen to his nonsense. My sister is very strong. If you find her, she will definitely kill you with a sword. Xiao Ta suddenly said, you three, think about it. If the brother is so weak, how strong can the sister be? Yi Xian's expression froze. The ancient Ming glanced at Yi Xian, then looked at the azure profound sword in front of him, you too, why don't you try? Ku Gan said solemnly, I still feel a little uneasy. The ancient Ming laughed heartily, with the three of us here, do you think she can kill us in a second? With that, he directly held the azure profound sword. In the next moment, the azure profound sword slightly trembled, and a moment later, the azure profound sword suddenly burst out with a sword cry. The ancient Ming suddenly looked up, and gradually, the space in the horizon directly became illusory, and then, the illusory space began to become clear. Yi Xian looked up at the space with a trace of anticipation in his eyes. Qing, It's been a long time since I've seen Qing, She should be fine in the Milky Way, right? No. The Milky Way should be fine, right? At this moment, a woman in a plain dress appeared in the space. She stood by the side of the street, and on both sides of the street, there were people walking to and fro. It must be said that standing there in a plain dress, she was undoubtedly the most eye-catching existence in the entire street. Passers-by's eyes would occasionally look at her, not just men, but even women couldn't help but look at her. Beautiful. Not only was she beautiful, but there was also an indescribable temperament about her. At this moment, the woman in the plain dress was standing in front of a watermelon stall. In her hand, there was a piece of watermelon missing a corner. Obviously, she had already taken a bite. Seeing the woman in the plain dress holding the watermelon, Xiao Ta's mind raced. At this moment, he had secretly decided to eat some watermelons in the future. On the other hand, Yi Xian's expression was a little strange. Qing likes to eat watermelons? On the other hand, the ancient Ming and the others frowned. What the hell is this place? The world in the image was completely different from the world they were in. It was strange and strange. One look and they could tell that this was not a good place. At this moment, the woman in front of the woman in the plain dress suddenly smiled. Miss, will you pay in cash or scan? The woman in the plain dress looked at the woman and slightly frowned. The woman hesitated for a moment and then said, Cash, scan? In the 6 worlds, Xiao Ta suddenly said. It's over. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Ta. What is it? Xiao Ta said in a low voice. Sister Tianming, may not scan. Yi Xian smiled. Qing is omnipotent. She will definitely scan. Xiao Ta, in the Milky Way, the woman in the plain dress looked at the woman in front of her without saying a word. Being stared at by the woman in the plain dress, the woman suddenly felt a little panicked. This, miss, a piece of watermelon is only 2 yuan. At this moment, the woman in the plain dress suddenly opened her right hand. In the 6 worlds, a watermelon suddenly flew out of a watermelon field. The watermelon carried a strand of sword chi as it soared into the sky. Then, it instantly tore through the space-time barrier of tens of millions of starfields, destroying countless stars along the way. As soon as the watermelon entered the Milky Way, the atmosphere above the Milky Way was suddenly torn open, causing the entire Earth to violently tremble. In the end, the watermelon fell into the woman's palm. She put the watermelon in front of the street vendor. Here you go. Then, she turned and left. Everyone. Asking for votes. For God's sake, please give me one. It's too tragic. I've never been in the top 10 of the monthly votes. If I don't have a ticket, I can give a tip. Chapter 2079. Dumbfounded. Everyone was dumbfounded. Yi Xian looked at the Qing, on the screen with his mouth wide open enough to stuff an egg inside. The small pagoda trembled slightly. He was extremely worried about the Milky Way. That watermelon almost destroyed the Milky Way, damn. The Milky Way was almost destroyed because of a watermelon? Can you believe it? The 3 ancient Ming's expressions were extremely solemn. Although the plain-dressed woman only sent a watermelon over, she made it travel through the space-time barrier of tens of millions of galaxies. Was that even something a human could do? The 3 of them only wanted to say one thing, holy shit. One had to know that the watermelon itself wasn't some divine item. Just how terrifying was the power needed to make a watermelon travel through countless universes? Everyone was dumbfounded by this scene. The plain-dressed woman appeared on top of an abandoned building. She turned around and her gaze fell on Yi Xian. Who bullied you? Who bullied you? Before Yi Xian could speak, Xiao Ta suddenly said, Sister Tianming, it's those 3. They bullied the young lord and even said they would destroy her soul so that she would never be reincarnated. Yi Xian, the 3 ancient Ming frowned at Xiao Ta's words. The plain-dressed woman suddenly looked at the 3 ancient Ming. The ancient Ming was about to speak, but the woman suddenly said, if you have anything to say, say it in your next life. With that, the sword in her hand suddenly flew up. Swish. In the 6 realms, above Yi Xian's group, a sword suddenly pierced through the air. It was the walking sword. The 3 ancient Ming's expressions changed drastically at the sight of the walking sword. A hint of ferocity flashed through Gu Ming's eyes, and he suddenly clenched his right hand into a fist. A moment later, he stomped his right foot on the ground and shot into the sky. When he got close to the descending sword, he suddenly punched out. The moment he punched out, the surrounding space boiled. However, the moment his fist came into contact with the green profound sword, swish. The Qingxian sword pierced straight through the ancient Ming's fist and entered his body through his fist. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the ancient Ming was like a deflated balloon. Countless forces swept out from his body and were annihilated. Instant kill. The surroundings were instantly silent to the point a pin drop could be heard. The ancient Ming was instantly killed. Yi Xian and Xiao Ta were not surprised. Wasn't it normal for Qing, to kill people in seconds? Nancy and Ku Gan were completely dumbstruck. One strike. The ancient Ming was killed in one move? At this moment, their minds had already gone blank. To the side, the ancient Ming who had yet to completely disappear had a confused look in his eyes. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. Just like that, his soul disappeared bit by bit. At this moment, the stride sword floated out from his soul, and in the next moment, the stride sword slashed towards Ku Gan. Ku Gan's expression changed drastically. He didn't retreat because he knew he couldn't. The speed of this sword was already abnormal. He couldn't dodge it at all. Ku Qian took a step forward. With this step, the walk sword was enveloped by a white light. The daybreak world. However, the walk sword had only just entered the daybreak world when it was instantly annihilated. Ku Gan's face was ashen when he witnessed this scene. At this moment, there was only a single thought in his mind: I'm finished. Hiss. As soon as this thought appeared in his mind, the walk sword had already entered the center of his forehead. Bang! Ku Gan's body shook violently, and then his body and soul started to be annihilated. His soul was swiftly annihilated. He was instantly killed again. Ku Gan's eyes were filled with disbelief as he gazed at the woman in a plain dress. You. He hadn't finished speaking when the walk sword suddenly flew out, and his body and soul vanished. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm, and two spatial rings floated over to him. The spatial rings of Ku Gan and the ancient Ming. Yi Xian glanced at them, and it didn't take long for his eyelids to twitch before he hurriedly put them away. Meanwhile, Nancy spoke with a trembling voice, I surrender. Surrender. Yi Xian and Xiao Ta were stunned. Nancy spoke with a trembling voice, say. Senior. I surrender. Surrender. Yi Xian's expression became slightly strange. Meanwhile, Xiao Ta said, aren't you too spineless? You surrender just like that? You should at least resist a little. Nancy glanced at Xiao Ta and cursed in his heart. Damn it, it's easy for you to say that. Resist? Would I still be alive if I resisted? Meanwhile, the woman in a plain dress opened her palm, and the walk sword appeared in her hand. She hadn't chosen to kill Nancy. The woman in a plain dress turned around and looked down. From her position, she could see half of the city. The woman in a plain dress remained silent as she looked down. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he said, Qing. The woman in a plain dress turned around to look at Yi Xian. What's wrong? Yi Xian asked, Arya. Is she all right? The woman in a plain dress nodded. She's not dead. Yi Xian was speechless. The woman in a plain dress asked, you know her? Yi Xian nodded. She's helped me a lot. He felt that it was necessary to put in a good word for Arya. He had a very good impression of this little girl, and she was a very loyal little girl. The woman in a plain dress nodded slightly, and then she said, she's over there. Is she all right? Yi Xian smiled and said, she's all right. As he spoke, he seemed to have thought of something, and he hurriedly said, Qing, I have a few questions to ask you. Qing nodded. All right. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Qing, there are two realms. One is breaking circle and the other is drawing circle. However, I didn't choose to walk on these two realms. Instead, I chose to enter the circle. You should know that I've entered your circle, right? Qing nodded slightly. Yes. Yi Xian said in a low voice, after I entered your circle, I comprehended a wonderful state, which is meditation. However, I don't know how to go next. Qing thought for a moment, and then said, focus. Yi Xian frowned, focus? Qing nodded slightly. After you calm your heart, you can focus your mind. Mind is also called the spirit, or the soul. After you calm your heart, concentrate your mental power and soul's power on one point, and then use the sword from the heart. Yi Xian said in a low voice, use the sword from the heart. Heart sword? Qing nodded. Yi Xian smiled bitterly, I've comprehended the heart sword a long time ago. These years, I've always felt that I'm walking on the same old path. Qing smiled faintly, it's normal. Yi Xian was a little puzzled, normal? Qing turned around to look down at the city, and then she said in a light voice, look at these people. For the sake of making a living, they leave every single day in the morning and return at night. Practically every single day of the year is boring. What is their life? Work, eat, sleep. Day after day, year after year, until the end of their lives. As she spoke, she turned to look at Yi Xian. It's not just them, everything in this world repeats itself, like the sunrise and sunset, like the ebb and flow of the tide, like the flower blooming and wilting. Repetition isn't a bad thing, every repetition is a new cycle, and also a new starting point. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Can you put it in simpler terms?" At the side, Nancy suddenly said, "This seems to be very simple already." "I understand everything, young friend, you." Chi. At this time, a sword flew out of nowhere, and directly entered Nancy's mouth. Bang! Blood spurted out from the back of Nancy's head. It was the walking sword. However, the walking sword didn't kill him, it just froze him. Nancy was dumbfounded. The woman in the plain dress glanced coldly at Nancy. "Are you very smart?" Nancy's expression was extremely ugly. "When did I suffer such injustice?" But he didn't have the slightest thought of resisting. "This woman is strong to the point of instilling despair in me." The woman in the plain dress paid no attention to Nancy, and she gazed at Yi Xian instead. "The heart sword is divided into many different types, and many types are divided into many layers, and many layers are divided into different realms." She hesitated for a moment when she spoke up to hear, and then she said, "It's truly difficult to explain with words, but you don't have to care about all of that. I'll simplify it for you. Cultivate concentration and do as I say. It doesn't matter if you don't understand it for now, we can cultivate it first, and then slowly understand it afterwards." Yi Xian was speechless. Nancy was flabbergasted. "Damn it. You can play it like that? How is cultivating any different from cheating?" Yi Xian nodded slightly. "All right. Then I'll cultivate concentration." He hesitated for a moment when he spoke up to hear, and then he asked, "Qing, when that person resisted your walking sword just now, he used a special type of space, the daytime space. There's a mysterious power of time passing within that space. Can you describe that type of space?" Qing fell silent. Yi Xian's brows knit together slightly. "You don't know?" Qing shook her head. "I'm thinking about how to simplify what I know so that you'll be able to understand it." Yi Xian's face froze. Xiao Ta hesitated for a moment, and then he said, "Young master, you should work hard and read more books in the future. Otherwise, it would be too embarrassing." Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, Qing said, "The realms in this world of yours are a mess, so I'll simplify it for you. Now, I'll divide it for you. There are only two types of space. One is normal space." "What is normal space?" "This is the spacetime where all living things live. This spacetime is the normal spacetime. There is another spacetime called the special spacetime. This special spacetime is more complicated because there are many types. The white day realm that you saw just now is just one of them. It's very complicated how this special space is formed. To put it simply, time flows at a different speed than normal space." Yi Xian asked again, "Why does time flow at a different speed than the outside world?" Qing thought for a moment, and then she said, "Because the density of space is different." Yi Xian frowned slightly, and then he continued to ask, "Because the density of space is different?" Qing was silent for a long time, and then she said, "Because when each type of space is formed, there are various factors that cause the density of space to be different. For example, the difference in the spiritual qi in each space will also affect the density of space. More importantly, there are some special substances in space that are difficult for ordinary people to see, and it's not something that can be explained in a few words." Yi Xian nodded slightly, and then he asked again, "How is this space formed? Also, how are those substances formed?" Boom! The abandoned building under Qing's feet suddenly turned into nothingness. Next to Yi Xian, Xiao Ta said in a trembling voice, "Young master, can you ask some questions about the world of the living? Sister Qing won't be angry with you, but it doesn't mean she won't be angry. If you ask again, the Milky Way will disappear." Yi Xian. Chapter 2080. Yi Xian looked at Qing hesitated, and then said, Qing. Qing said softly, you're still lacking in knowledge. There are many things you don't understand. That's normal. When she spoke up to this point, she thought for a moment, and then she opened her palm. An ancient book suddenly appeared in her palm. Yi Xian was curious, what's this? Qing said, I prepared it for you. It contains some basic knowledge. You can find the answers to any questions you have about swordsmanship and martial arts. The ancient book floated out and appeared in front of Yi Xian the next moment. Yi Xian hurriedly bent down to catch the ancient book. He opened it and saw that the first page was, Spirit Concentration. Focus. Yi Xian was taken aback. Then, a white light entered his forehead. Boom. Yi Xian's body trembled. Soon, a lot of information rushed into his brain. Focus. Among the information, Qing gave him a detailed introduction on how to cultivate. Qing also made very detailed notes on some space-time knowledge, as if she was afraid that he wouldn't be able to understand. Qing suddenly said, cultivate slowly. If you feel tired, then don't cultivate. Yi Xian was stunned. He looked at Qing, don't cultivate? Qing nodded, I'll protect you forever. Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, Qing suddenly turned around and looked towards the horizon in the distance. There were a few dozen flying objects in the distance. A voice came from the sky. Cultivator, you've been surrounded. Raise your hands, now. Now. Dozens of red lines were aimed at the woman in the plain dress. The woman in the plain dress turned to look. Let's talk next time. With that, the image suddenly disappeared. Beside Yi Xian, Xiao Ta said in a trembling voice, it's over. It's over. The Milky Way is done for. Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, Nancy intended to leave. Yi Xian looked at Nancy and asked with a smile, where are you going? South's face froze. He hesitated for a moment before he said, Young Master Yi, do you have any instructions for me? Yi Xian smiled and said, South Division Patriarch, don't you think you should express your gratitude? Nancy glanced at Yi Xian, hesitated for a moment, and then said, Young Master Yi, what kind of compensation do you want? Yi Xian opened his palm, and 2 storage rings appeared in his hand. They were the storage rings of the ancient Ming Patriarch and the ancient Ming Patriarch. He looked at Nancy without saying anything. How could Nancy not understand? He immediately handed his storage ring to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, this is a small token of my appreciation, please accept it. Yi Xian said with a straight face, I'm not that kind of person. Nancy's expression froze. Yi Xian was a little unhappy. Do you think I'm the kind of person who bullies others? Let me tell you, I'm not. Nancy's expression was extremely ugly. Damn it, aren't you? Of course, he didn't dare to say the truth. He immediately smiled and said, Young Master Yi, I've given you a lot of trouble in the past. This is a small token of my appreciation as an apology. Please accept it, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian put away the storage ring and said, South Division Patriarch, since this is a token of your appreciation, then I'll accept it. Nancy hurriedly nodded. Thank you, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian nodded slightly. South Division Patriarch, I have another presumptuous request. You don't mind, right? Nancy was a little hesitant. Please speak, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled. Not now, but if I need any help in the future. You also know that I have no one to rely on here. I don't even have a helper, so, South Division Patriarch immediately said, if Young Master Yi needs anything in the future, just let me know. Just give the order. Our Nether clan's original Young Master Yi will not hesitate to climb a mountain of swords or dive into a sea of flames. Yi Xian was stunned. Why has this fellow suddenly become so proactive? Actually, South Division Patriarch was unwilling in the beginning. But later on, he thought about it in a different way. Wouldn't it be an extremely good thing if the Nether tribe could ride on Yi Xian's coattails? This might be an enormous opportunity for the Nether tribe. Because that woman in a plain dress was truly too terrifying. Yi Xian said with a smile, "Thank you so much, Leader Nancy." South Division Patriarch hurriedly said, "No, no. It's an honor for my Nether tribe to be able to serve young Master Yi. It's an enormous honor." Yi Xian was speechless. South Division Patriarch hesitated for a moment before he said, "Young Master Yi, can I ask you a question?" Yi Xian gazed at South Division Patriarch and said with a smile, "Go ahead and ask." South Division Patriarch fell silent for a moment before he said, "Who was that senior just now?" Yi Xian roared with laughter. "She's my younger sister." Younger sister. South Division Patriarch spoke in a low voice. Was she really young Master Yi's younger sister? Yi Xian nodded. "You don't seem to believe me." South Division Patriarch smiled with embarrassment and didn't speak. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Are you wondering why the younger sister is so strong while the older brother isn't so strong?" South Division Patriarch smiled with embarrassment and didn't speak. Yi Xian sighed softly. "To tell you the truth, I'm actually very strong as well. However, I encountered a slight problem in my cultivation that day." South Division Patriarch frowned slightly. "Young Master Yi is recultivating?" Yi Xian hurriedly nodded. "Yes. I'm recultivating. Moreover, I've lost some of my memories. Once I recover them completely, then there won't be anyone in the universe that I can't deal with a single strike of my sword." South Division Patriarch glanced at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Regardless of whether it was true or not, it was fine so long as he knew what was going on. Yi Xian was just about to speak when two powerful auras suddenly appeared here. It was the Shumi race's patriarch, Shumi Kong, and the Tian race's patriarch, Tian Chan. Both of them glanced at their surroundings and frowned slightly. Shumi Kong spoke in a low voice, "What happened?" Yi Xian smiled, "It's nothing. The Gu race's patriarch and God race's patriarch have withered away. They're gone." Both of them were stunned. Shumi Kong turned to look at South Division Patriarch. "You did it?" South Division Patriarch glanced at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Shumi Kong looked at Yi Xian. "You did it?" Yi Xian laughed. "Who do you think did it?" Shumi Kong looked at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, don't play tricks here." "You." South Division Patriarch suddenly laughed coldly. "Shumi Kong, you really are a brainless person." Shumi Kong looked at South Division Patriarch with narrowed eyes. "What do you mean?" South Division Patriarch sighed. "Shumi Kong, 2 Break World elites died just now. Do you want to be the third?" He actually wanted Shumi Kong to provoke Yi Xian, but he was afraid. He was afraid that the plainclothed woman would appear again. That woman clearly had a bad temper. If she appeared again and killed him while killing Shumi Kong and Yi Xian, how wronged would he be? He really didn't want to see that plainclothed woman again. Too scary. Hearing South Division Patriarch's words, Shumi Kong frowned slightly. He looked at Yi Xian again. Yi Xian smiled and said, "I'm leaving." After that, he put away Xiao Ta and turned to leave. At that moment, Shumi Kong suddenly said, "Wait." Yi Xian turned to look at Shumi Kong. "What is it?" Shumi Kong hesitated and then said, "Then Xiao Ta." South Division Patriarch suddenly became angry. "Shumi Kong, are you retarded? Is that right?" "Huh? Are you retarded? You bastard." Yi Xian was speechless. Shumi Kong was furious as well. "South Division Patriarch, don't play tricks on me. I won't fall for it." "You." At that moment, Tian Chan suddenly retreated to South Division Patriarch's side. Shumi Kong didn't understand, but he did. Who was South Division Patriarch? He was the Netherworld Patriarch. In the entire 6 realms, his strength was second only to the God Race Patriarch, coup gone. South Division Patriarch's attitude towards Yi Xian was very abnormal. Respect. Why was South Division Patriarch so respectful to Yi Xian? Clearly, the deaths of Ku Gan and the ancient Ming were related to Yi Xian. If Yi Xian could kill those two, then he could kill them. Offending Yi Xian at a time like this was not a wise decision. Seeing Tian Chan stand behind South Division Patriarch, Xu Mikong frowned. Tian Chan, what is the meaning of this? Tian Chan was silent. He felt helpless. Damn it. Why was Xu Mikong like an idiot? At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly spread out Xiao Ta and smiled. Patriarch Xu Mikong, you want this Xiao Ta? Xu Mikong looked at Yi Xian and said in a low voice, Yi Xian, don't forget that you sold this Xiao Ta to me. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I think so. Xu Mikong said in a low voice, this Xiao Ta belongs to my Xumi race. Xiao Ta suddenly said, what makes you think I'm yours? Xu Mikong glanced at Lil Tower. He already sold you to me. Xiao Ta said angrily, he said he sold me to you, so I'm yours? Xu Mikong frowned slightly, what do you mean? Xiao Ta said indifferently, what do I mean? I said I sold the 6 realms to you. Now, the 6 realms are yours. Xu Mikong's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at Yi Xian, what? You're not going to keep your word? Yi Xian was about to speak when Xiao Ta suddenly said, it has nothing to do with young master. He doesn't have any rights to me. My rights are with master. He has no right to sell me to you. Xu Mikong said angrily, didn't you call him young master? Xiao Ta said angrily, you know he's young master as well. There's an old master above him, and the old master isn't dead yet. So, he can't inherit me. Yi Xian's face darkened. Damn it. What the hell is this Xiao Ta talking about? Xu Mikong slowly clenched his right hand, I can tell. Both of you are playing with me. Xiao Ta was slightly speechless, old fellow, you're the one who's a joke. Why do you believe his words? Xu Mikong said angrily, you stupid tower. Shut up. Xiao Ta, Xu Mikong looked at Yi Xian, when you sold it to me, the old man only asked you one question. Do you admit it? Yi Xian nodded, I admit it. Saying so, he looked at Xiao Ta, it's yours. Xu Mikong looked at Xiao Ta, you stupid tower, did you hear that? Your master admits it. Xiao Ta suddenly looked at Yi Xian, young master, how many star veins did you sell me for? Yi Xian hesitated and then said, 5. Xiao Ta was furious, young master, you wastrel. I'm the family heirloom that your father left for you, and you only sold me 5 star veins? 5? Can't you sell a bit more? Yi Xian. P.S. The story of the Milky Way galaxy will only appear in the foreign chapters. The new foreign chapters are already in the process of being written. Finally, please vote. Please. Please use votes to insult me. Chapter 2081. When he heard Xiao Ta's words, Xu Mikong's expression instantly turned ugly. He finally understood. This man and tower were playing with him. Xu Mikong clenched his right hand and punched at Yi Xian. In the distance, Yi Xian's expression was calm, and he had no intention of attacking. Meanwhile, South Priest suddenly stood in front of Yi Xian, and then he smashed his fist towards Yi Xian. Boom! Their powerful powers had just come into contact when the starry sky around them boiled and then was annihilated. Then, the two of them entered a mysterious space-time abyss. Xu Mikong stared at Nancy. Nancy, what are you doing? Nancy turned to look at Yi Xian and waited for Yi Xian's instructions. Yi Xian smiled and said, I'll do it. Nancy was stunned. Young Master Yi, you? Yi Xian nodded slightly. He glanced at Xu Mikong and smiled, I'll do it. Actually, he had wanted to fight a break world expert for a long time. Because he didn't know what level his combat power was at. In any case, Avalokitesvara was absolutely no match for him, and he wanted to see if he could kill a break world expert. At that moment, Nancy hesitated and said, "Young Master Yi, are you sure?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "Don't worry. If I can't beat him, I'll call for help." As he spoke, he walked towards Sumi Kong. Nancy's expression froze when he heard Yi Xian's words. Call for help? When he thought of that terrifying woman in a plain dress, he couldn't help but feel terrified. At that moment, Yi Xian had walked in front of Sumi Kong. He looked at Sumi Kong and smiled, "Do it." Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian and said, "You overestimate yourself." As soon as he spoke, he flipped his right hand, and Yi Xian was instantly sent into the daytime world. However, Yi Xian's expression was calm, and he didn't panic at all. In next to no time, Sumi Kong frowned because he noticed that nothing had happened to Yi Xian in the Daybreak realm. At this moment, Yi Xian took a step forward. With this step, he directly left the Daybreak realm. When they saw this, the expressions of the three break world experts changed. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. He came out just like that? Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian like he was looking at a monster. Yi Xian flicked his thumb, and the green profound sword flew out. In the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of Sumi Kong. Sumi Kong's expression instantly changed drastically. He was just about to attack when his hair instantly turned white. Moreover, his entire body started vanishing at a visible speed. On the other hand, Nancy and Tian Chan's expressions changed drastically, and they retreated explosively. This retreat was over 100 kilometers away. Both of them looked at Yi Xian in the distance with shock in their eyes. Time passed. Because time was passing in the area where Yi Xian was, and it was passing at a speed that was even more terrifying than the daylight world. The green profound sword stopped around 10 inches away from Sumi Kong's forehead. At this moment, Sumi Kong was as old as a piece of rotten wood. His lifespan had come to an end. Yi Xian's attack had severed his lifespan. Meanwhile, Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword returned to his grasp. Sumi Kong suddenly spoke in a hoarse voice, "What is this attack called?" Yi Xian stopped moving. He thought for a moment and said, "Life-severing." Life-severing. Sumi Kong's eyes were filled with confusion. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly said, "I'm sorry. I didn't expect you to be so weak. However, this is already my weakest attack." Alas! Sumi Kong was speechless. When he saw that Yi Xian was about to leave, Sumi Kong used the last of his strength to ask, "Since you're so strong, why are you pretending to be so weak?" Yi Xian turned his head to look at Sumi Kong, and then he said, "Acting cool, understand?" Sumi Kong died on the spot. Yi Xian disappeared at the end of the horizon with small pagoda. Nancy and Tian Chan fell silent. At this moment, Yi Xian turned back, and the two of them were stunned. Yi Xian smiled sheepishly. "I was so pretentious that I forgot to bring something." As he spoke, he opened his palm, and Sumi Kong's spatial ring flew into his hand. Then, he turned and disappeared into the horizon. Nancy and Tian Chan were dumbfounded. After a long time, Tian Chan said solemnly, "Did he kill Gu Ming and the others?" Nancy was silent for a moment before he said, "Would you believe me if I said no?" Tian Chan looked at Nancy. "No?" Nancy said softly, "His sister killed them. Who knows how many star regions they are separated by?" Tian Chan said solemnly, "His sister? Is she very strong?" Nancy looked at Tian Chan, "Why should we?" "Oh, no, if we fight young Master Yi, we can still live. If we fight his sister," as he said this, he shook his head. "Just wait for death." Tian Chan was speechless. Nancy suddenly asked, "Why is Sumi Kong so stupid? He shouldn't be." Tian Chan was silent for a moment before he said, "I didn't expect him to be so stupid." South sighed in a low voice. "We still need to keep a low profile and be humble. Why did Gu Ming die?" Because of arrogance. He still remembered Gu Ming's words. I don't believe she can kill me, try and die. One shouldn't be too high profile. Yi Xian brought Xiao Ta and appeared in the clouds. At this moment, Yi Xian was very excited. Life. He didn't expect the sword skill he created to be so powerful. 1/life. When that sword came down, not even a break world elite could block it. That was too scary. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly said, Young master, if I knew you were so strong, I wouldn't have played those fancy tricks. Yi Xian laughed. Xiao Ta, do you think I'm strong too? Xiao Ta said, You're a bit stronger than before. As he said this, he seemed to have thought of something and said, Young master, aren't you worried about me being captured? Yi Xian said seriously, Worried? I think I should be worried about Gu Ming and the others. Xiao Ta was stunned and then said excitedly, Why? Yi Xian said seriously, Who are you? You are the #1 tower in the universe. I really can't think of anyone who can kill you with your intelligence aside from the 3 swords. Xiao Ta smiled. Young master. Be low profile. Low profile. Yi Xian sighed. Gu Ming and the others meeting you is their misfortune. Xiao Ta laughed. Young master, actually, I think you're quite strong. Although your power isn't as strong as master, you're still young. Let me tell you, when master was your age, he was far weaker than you. Yi Xian carefully looked around and said, Don't talk nonsense. Dad is still very strong. Xiao Ta smiled. When master was your age, he really wasn't as strong as you. Plus, master had a backer in the past. Although he wasn't as strong as your backer, he still relied on others. Anyway, in my heart, young master, you aren't any weaker than him. You wanting to surpass him is just a matter of time. Yi Xian smiled. Xiao Ta, you followed Dad for a long time. I believe that Dad's achievements today are partly due to you. Xiao Ta laughed. Low profile. Low profile. Haha. Yi Xian looked around and felt a bit guilty. Then, he turned around and disappeared. Not long after, Yi Xian arrived at the spiritual world. Ling Tian already knew about the fall of the ancient Ming and the others. She also knew that it was related to Yi Xian. Inside the room, Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian. You did it? Yi Xian smiled. You mean the ancient Ming? Ling Tian nodded. Yi Xian said with a smile, I killed him. Ling Tian frowned. You killed all 3? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Plus, I only used 1 sword. He paused for a bit before continuing. There's also Xiao Ta. The 2 of us joined hands and killed all 3 of them. Xiao Ta quickly replied. Yes. I joined hands with the young master and killed all 3 of them. It was as easy as blowing off dust. It was just a bit of a waste of words. At this point, it hurriedly stopped. Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian said, You don't believe me? Ling Tian sighed. You couldn't have killed them. Yi Xian smiled. If you don't believe me, you can ask Nancy. After that, he turned around and entered Xiao Ta. Ling Tian hesitated for a moment before turning around and vanishing on the spot. Not long after, Ling Tian arrived at the spiritual world. She found Nancy. Nancy was silent for a bit before saying, He said he killed them? Ling Tian nodded. Nancy said, Then he killed them. Ling Tian's expression froze. Nancy looked at Ling Tian. Yes, young Master Yi killed 3 break world elites with 1 sword. Ling Tian's face was full of black lines. He isn't that strong. Nancy sighed. Don't worry about this. If young Master Yi said he was invincible, I would believe him. Ling Tian was speechless. Nancy suddenly said, Ling Tian leader, young Master Yi and your spirit clan, Ling Tian said, best friends. She was not stupid. She knew that even if the three of them were not killed by Yi Xian must have had something to do with it. Did she not see Nancy call Yi Xian young Master Yi? At this time, Nancy suddenly said, Ling Tian leader, let's form an alliance. Ling Tian looked at Nancy. Alliance? Nancy nodded. Alliance, forever good friends. Ling Tian was speechless. A moment later, Ling Tian said in a low voice, South ruler, what exactly happened? Can you tell me? Nancy was silent for a while and said, young Master Yi. He is a second generation. Ling Tian was speechless. Inside Xiao Ta's room, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. At this moment, he had entered a wonderful state of meditation. After entering this state, he began to focus. Was it difficult to focus? Very, very difficult. But for Yi Xian, it was not difficult at all. Why? Because Qing had explained this realm in detail. Not only that, but he had also taught him how to cultivate. Qing had given him the solution to all his problems. One day later, Yi Xian had successfully entered that state of focus. At this time, Yi Xian seemed to have thought of something and suddenly asked, I wonder what happened to those guys who surrounded Qing. Xiao Ta said in a low voice, young master, you should ask what happened to the Milky Way. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 2082. Would Qing destroy the Milky Way galaxy? Yi Xian didn't know. He only knew that the Milky Way galaxy might be in trouble. A moment later, Yi Xian came to the daylight spacetime. Because of the Qingxian sword, the power of the daylight realm had no effect on him. Not only that, but the power of the Life Slayer became even more terrifying in the daylight realm. Because the power of time was everywhere in the daylight realm, the Qingxian sword could directly mobilize it. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. He entered the daylight realm not to mobilize the power of time, but to see the power of the spirit concentration realm. The moment his eyes were closed, Yi Xian directly entered the state of meditation, and then he entered the state of spirit concentration. At this moment, his mental power and the power of his divine soul were highly concentrated. Yi Xian suddenly pointed with his thumb. Buzz! The Qingxian sword directly flew out. Boom! In an instant, the daylight realm was directly annihilated. The corner of Yi Xian's mouth lifted slightly. The power of this sword was much, much stronger than the previous one. In the state of meditation, everything was clear, and in the state of spirit concentration, oneself was clear. The biggest difference between the two was that one recognized everything, and the other recognized oneself. In the state of spirit concentration, he could exert everything of his body to the extreme. Invincible. Yi Xian had this feeling again. Now, he had not only reached the spirit concentration realm, but also created a terrifying sword skill like Life Slayer. The breaking realm? He was no longer his opponent. But Yi Xian's mind was still clear. He didn't forget the rule that he couldn't stay cool for more than 3 days. Low-key. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian opened his palm, and 4 storage rings appeared in his hand. There were nearly 50 star veins in the storage rings. These 50 star veins were the private property of Gu Ming and the others. It wasn't a lot, but it wasn't a lot either. In addition to what Ling Tian had given him, he now had 75 star pulses. Star pulses were very useful for break world elites. In other words, for a long time in the future, star pulses would not depreciate. Yi Xian put away the spatial ring and left. He arrived at a starry sky. He looked around and smiled. Xiao Ta, we have to go to the next universe. Xiao Ta said, yes. Yi Xian smiled and asked, Xiao Ta, do you have any expectations for the next world? After a moment of silence, Xiao Ta said, I hope that the people of the next world are a bit stronger. Otherwise, that would be too boring. Life is only interesting when it's a little difficult. Yi Xian laughed, yes. Let's bid farewell to the Ling Tian patriarch. As soon as he finished speaking, he transformed into a ray of sword light and vanished on the spot. Spiritual realm. Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian in front of him and frowned. You're leaving? Yi Xian nodded. It's time to go. Ling Tian was a bit puzzled. Why? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, there are no opponents here. Ling Tian's expression froze. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Elder Ling Tian, do you know where is more dangerous? Ling Tian thought for a moment and said, are you serious? Yi Xian nodded. The more dangerous the place, the better. Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian. There is a place that may be suitable for you. However, that place is really dangerous. Yi Xian laughed. The more dangerous, the better. Ling Tian was silent for a moment and said, the dead world. Yi Xian frowned. The dead world? Ling Tian nodded. It's a very mysterious place. No one in the 6 realms dares to go there, including the experts in the breaking world realm. Yi Xian smiled. How do I go there? Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian. Don't you want to understand it first? Yi Xian shook his head. No need. Ling Tian hesitated for a moment and pointed at Yi Xian's eyebrows. Boom. A message entered Yi Xian's eyebrows. Yi Xian smiled. Elder Ling Tian, goodbye. After that, he was about to leave. At this time, Ling Tian suddenly said, wait. Yi Xian looked at Ling Tian. What's wrong? Ling Tian said in a deep voice. I can understand that you want adventure and excitement. However, that place is really not that simple. After you go there, you better be careful. Yi Xian nodded. Okay. Ling Tian nodded. Take care. Yi Xian smiled. See you later. After that, he rode his sword and disappeared at the end of the sky. Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian's sword light in the distant sky and frowned. Yi Xian left the 6 realms and went straight to the dead world. The dead world. He was not afraid at all. Why? Because when he heard this name, he knew that place was full of death qi, and he could absorb death qi. Moreover, with his current strength, apart from the 3 swords, who else could compete with the green profound sword? He did not dare to say that he was invincible, but he felt that in this world, except for the 3 swords, no one was his opponent. Thinking of this, Yi Xian could not help but chuckle. He seemed to be a little arrogant. At this time, Xiao Ta suddenly said, young master, should we act tough in a low profile or high profile? Yi Xian thought for a while and said, what do you think? Xiao Ta said in a deep voice. Why don't we pretend to be weak to eat the tiger? I think that's good. We pretend that we are weak and wait for people without intelligence to provoke us. Then, we recover our strength and beat them up. Then, if the enemy has intelligence, they will immediately admit defeat. If the enemy has no intelligence, they will call us father or ancestor. Then, we can continue to act tough. Yi Xian was speechless. Xiao Ta continued. We can act tough in a high profile. Anyway, with our current strength, except for the 3 swords, no one is a match for us. And the 3 swords are on our side. In this case, why should we not act tough? Why not? Yi Xian thought for a while and said, that makes sense. As he spoke, he laughed heartily and sped up. Before long, Yi Xian and Xiao Ta arrived at the dead world. As soon as they entered the dead world, Yi Xian frowned. He knew why this place was called the dead world. It was really a gloomy place. Moreover, there was no vitality at all. It was strange everywhere. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings, and then he walked into the distance. In a short while, he arrived at a river, and there was a blood-red stone tablet erected at the side of the river. There were 2 words carved on the stone tablet, Dead Man's River. Dead Man's River. Yi Xian sized up the Dead Man's River. The water was muddy, and there was a mysterious force enveloping it. So, he could not see the bottom of the river at all. Yi Xian hesitated and said, Xiao Ta, do you want to go down and take a look? Xiao Ta said in a deep voice, Young master, are you afraid? Yi Xian said with a serious expression, How could I be? Xiao Ta said, With your current strength, no one can kill you. No matter where you go, you'll be a big shot. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he nodded. That makes sense. As he spoke, he walked towards the Dead Man's River. When he arrived at the riverside, he suddenly frowned. Meanwhile, the middle of the river rippled, and then a woman floated out slowly from within it. The woman wore a thin red veil, and she had a graceful figure. Everything beneath the veil was faintly discernible, and it was extremely alluring. Wet temptation. Yi Xian thought of this word. The woman glanced at Yi Xian, but she didn't say anything. She just took out a comb and started to comb her hair. She combed very slowly, gently, and gently. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he said in his heart, Xiao Ta, what should we do now? Xiao Ta said, Hit her. Yi Xian's face darkened. Just like that? Xiao Ta said, This woman is obviously an expert. Let's exchange a few blows. Just don't kill her. Our goal is to lose, not to kill. Yi Xian glanced at the woman in the distance, and the woman suddenly asked, What's the matter? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, Ask for a beating. The woman frowned slightly. Ask for a beating? Yi Xian roared with laughter. Yes. The woman thought for a moment, and then she nodded. All right. Yi Xian was about to speak when the woman suddenly vanished on the spot. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he used his thumb to lightly push the green profound sword forward. But in the next moment, Yi Xian's pupils constricted because he noticed that his green profound sword had mysteriously returned to its sheath. What's going on? Yi Xian hadn't even reacted when a hand grabbed his throat. Boom! In the blink of an eye, Yi Xian's physical body shattered, and at the same time, the woman's finger touched the space between Yi Xian's eyebrows. Boom! Yi Xian's soul trembled violently, and then it was as if his body had been fixed on the spot. Yi Xian was stunned. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly said, Young master, you. Even if you want to act tough in a low profile, you don't have to be so low profile. Don't go easy on me too much. Yi Xian, the woman looked at Yi Xian. In millions of years, this is the first time I've met someone with such a request. Yi Xian, the woman suddenly opened her palm, and Yi Xian's green profound sword flew into her hand. She used her right hand to clamp the green profound sword's blade, and then she used the momentum to cut down lightly. When she reached the tip of the sword, she exerted force with 2 fingers. Boom! The green profound sword shook violently. It didn't shatter, but a crack appeared on the green profound sword's blade. However, it returned to normal in an instant. Not only that, a crack appeared on the woman's fingers, and blood flowed out. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's expression instantly changed. It could break the green profound sword. Damn it. This time, his acting tough had failed. The woman frowned slightly, and she looked at Yi Xian. Your sword is interesting. Yi Xian was silent. What did he say? His acting tough had failed, and he had nothing to say. The woman suddenly opened her palm, and Xiao Ta appeared in her hand. She looked at Xiao Ta, and then said, Reverse time. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly said, Young master, hit her. Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. The woman looked at Xiao Ta, and then said, It seems like he can't beat me. Xiao Ta said in a low voice, Nonsense. My young master was invincible just now, how could he not beat you? He just wanted to act tough in a low profile. Young master, get her. Yi Xian, the woman looked at Yi Xian, are you trying to be low profile? Yi Xian, Xiao Ta said again, that's for sure. Under 3 moves, who can kill my young master? Yi Xian was silent. He was a little embarrassed now, hearing Xiao Ta's words. The woman looked at Yi Xian, and she looked at Yi Xian. Your young master doesn't seem very powerful. Xiao Ta wanted to say something, but Yi Xian suddenly said, Xiao Ta, stop bragging. Xiao Ta was stunned, and then said, young master, don't hide your strength. Get her. Let her sing conquer. Yi Xian. P.S. I'm asking for votes every day, will you guys be annoyed? If it's annoying, then I won't ask for votes, I'll ask for tips. Chapter 2083. The woman gazed at Xiao Ta with a teasing smile in her eyes. A woman and a pagoda. Interesting. Xiao Ta intended to say something, but the woman suddenly turned around. 4 people were walking over from afar. All of them wore mourning robes and mourning hats, and there was a white talisman stuck between their brows. Beneath the talisman was a rotting face. They were even carrying a gift box. As soon as they appeared, the temperature in the surroundings plummeted as if they'd fallen into a 10,000-year-old freezer. Moreover, a horrifying and strange ghostly tune drifted through the surroundings. It sounded like a child crying, and it carried a trace of desolation. It was extremely horrifying. At this moment, the woman turned around and a red robe appeared on her body. The robe completely concealed her graceful figure. She gazed at the 4 people with a calm expression on her face. The rotting man in the lead spoke in a hoarse voice, Zhao Lord, please accept it. The woman's eyes narrowed slightly. Fuck off. The rotting man bowed slightly. I'll be taking my leave. As soon as he finished speaking, he placed the gift box down and gazed at Yi Xian. In the next moment, a ball of black energy swept out from within him, and it swept towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically. Motherfucker. What's the meaning of this? I told you to fuck off, so why are you hitting me? At this moment, he couldn't attack at all because his soul had been frozen by the woman. Of course, it wasn't that he didn't have a trump card. A strand of sword energy started to tremble within his body. It was the sword energy from his father that he'd seized from Princess Ling. He didn't really want to use it because it was one of his trump cards, and he only had one. If he used it, then it would be impossible for him to use it again in the future. Just as Yi Xian was about to unleash that wisp of sword energy, the woman suddenly flicked her sleeve, and the countless wisps of black gas instantly vanished. The rotting man in the lead looked at the woman. Zhao Lord, the dead lord said that you can't have another man by your side. The woman stared at the rotting man. Go back and tell him that the human by his side is my man, understand? Yi Xian's face darkened. Motherfucker. This woman was using him as a shield. Hearing the woman's words, the rotting man frowned slightly. This frown made the rotten flesh on his face feel like it was about to fall off. It was extremely disgusting. The woman slowly clenched her right hand. If you don't get lost, I'll kill you all. After a moment of silence, the rotting man bowed slightly and left with the other 3 rotting men. The woman turned to look at Yi Xian. She sized up Yi Xian. What are you doing here? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, I'm here to take a master. Xiao Ta, the woman frowned. Apprentice? Yi Xian nodded. The woman sized Yi Xian up and said, it looks to me like you've come to court death. Yi Xian was speechless. The woman glanced towards the distance and said, let's go back. Yi Xian quickly said, all right. With that, he turned around and left. I can't stay here for long. I have to go back and cultivate for a while before returning. Suddenly, the woman said, wait. Yi Xian turned around to look at the woman. The green-clothed man's sword energy within Xiao Ta was trembling slightly. The woman spoke indifferently, you can't leave now. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Are you talking about those 4 guys who are neither human nor ghost? The woman nodded. Yi Xian frowned when he heard this. Meanwhile, the woman continued, "They won't let you go even if I protect you." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice, "Miss, what exactly is this place?" The woman gazed at Yi Xian. "You didn't even know where this place is, yet you came here?" Yi Xian laughed with embarrassment. "I was careless. I was careless." The woman shook her head slightly. "I won't kill you. Good luck." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and walked off. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he hurriedly followed her. The woman suddenly stopped and turned around to look at Yi Xian. "Why are you following me?" Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "I'm afraid of death." The woman stared at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Yi Xian's scalp went numb from her gaze, and he hesitated for a moment before he said, "Miss Zhao." The woman suddenly shook her head. "You never mean a word you say. Come with me." As soon as she finished speaking, she walked off into the distance. Yi Xian hurriedly followed her. It didn't take long for the woman to bring Yi Xian to an old temple. The temple was situated within a mountain, and it was extremely gloomy. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings and felt slightly speechless. This place is like the netherworld. Yi Xian glanced at the plaque above the ancient temple. There were 3 big black words carved on the plaque, Hongzhou Temple. The woman took Yi Xian into the temple. The temple was very simple. There was a burning bonfire and nothing else. The woman sat in front of the bonfire. She looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian sat down. He hesitated and said, "Miss Zhao, when you attacked me, why did my sword return to its scabbard?" The woman coldly said, "Reverse time." Yi Xian frowned. "Reverse time?" The woman nodded. Yi Xian was silent. A break world elite could only use the daylight world to speed up the flow of time. This Miss Zhao didn't need to use any time and space to reverse time. Yi Xian looked at the woman. "Miss Zhao, how can you reverse time?" The woman looked at Yi Xian. "Do you know about daylight time and space?" Yi Xian nodded. "It can speed up the flow of time." The woman nodded. "If you can control the time in the daylight world, then you can reverse time." Yi Xian quickly asked, "How do I do that?" The woman said, "Do it." After a moment of hesitation, Yi Xian threw a punch at the woman. However, when he finished his punch, he was shocked to find that his fist had unknowingly shrunk back. The woman said, "I can make time go back to a breath of time. Although it is only a breath of time, for elites like us, this breath is enough to change everything." Yi Xian was silent. A breath of time. Like the woman said, although it was only a breath of time, this breath was enough to change everything. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Again." The woman looked at Yi Xian. "Again?" Yi Xian nodded. "Again. Miss, be careful." After saying that, his thumb moved. Chi. The green profound sword suddenly slashed out. The moment the green profound sword flew out, the woman's expression changed drastically. Her figure trembled and she retreated thousands of meters away. When she stopped, the temple had been reduced to a pile of dust. Life-severing. This sword domain was different from before. He directly used life-severing. After using life-severing, his sword directly broke the woman's time reversal. Because the woman's time reversal was a breath of time. When his sword slashed down, the time in the area they were in instantly flowed by tens of thousands of years. Smooth. Simply put, he was flowing with time. Just like the woman, he didn't need the daylight world. In the distance, the woman stared at Yi Xian with a solemn expression. "How did you do it?" Yi Xian smiled. "I can communicate with the daylight world." The woman frowned slightly. "Impossible. No divine object can withstand the flow of time in the daylight world." As she said that, she suddenly looked at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand. "Your sword can." Yi Xian nodded. The woman took a deep glance at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Why was time reversal so invincible? Because no one could flow with time outside the daylight world. So, even if one could reverse time for a breath of time, it was still a heaven-defying and invincible existence. She hadn't expected that this young man could actually flow with time outside the daylight world. That was equivalent to him being the daylight world. Needless to say, the woman was extremely shocked at this moment. Because for countless years, many people had wanted to control the flow of time within the daylight world. If they could bring it out, then they would absolutely be invincible existences. However, no one had been able to accomplish it. Because no divine object could withstand the flow of time. If other divine objects could withstand the flow of time, then their vitality would flow away as well. Even some powerful spirits would turn into dust upon coming into contact with the flow of time. Moreover, the owner of the divine object wouldn't be able to withstand the flow of time and would perish. However, the sword in front of him could. Yi Xian was extremely excited at this moment. He noticed that he didn't have to fear the flow of time at all. Not only was he unafraid of it, but it was the opposite. Conversely, experts who'd learned the power of time reversal should fear him instead. He was flowing with time. Actually, going against the flow of time was much more difficult than going with it. However, it depended on the situation. It was like water and fire. Under normal circumstances, fire was afraid of water. But what if the fire was 100 times larger than water? Under such circumstances, could water still extinguish the fire? Simply speaking, if someone's time reversal exceeded the time he took to go with it, then he would lose to that person. However, there were absolutely very few people who could do that right now. The reason he'd been bashed up by Miss Zhao at the beginning was because he hadn't executed life-severing. Because he hadn't intended to kill her, and he'd merely intended to spar. Of course, he hadn't underestimated Miss Zhao. Because she'd been able to shatter his green profound sword. That meant that even if she didn't use time reversal, her strength was still extremely terrifying. Besides that, Miss Zhao had been completely unharmed when he'd swung his sword just now. Meanwhile, the woman suddenly said, "Can I have a look at that sword of yours?" Yi Xian gazed at her and smiled, "Of course." As he spoke, he opened his palm, and the green profound sword flew over to her. She gazed at Yi Xian, "You're willing to give it to me?" Yi Xian smiled, "I trust you, miss." She stared at Yi Xian, "Why do you trust me?" Yi Xian said with a smile, "How would a peerless powerhouse like you do such a shameless thing?" The woman glanced at Yi Xian, and then she sized up the green profound sword in her hand. A short while later, she gazed at Yi Xian, and she didn't say a word before she transformed into a ray of red light and vanished on the spot. Yi Xian was stunned. She's escaped. Yi Xian hurriedly swept the surroundings with his divine sense, but he couldn't find her at all. She'd vanished without a trace. Yi Xian's face was extremely dark as he stood on the spot. Damn it. She doesn't play by the rules. Chapter 2084. She ran away. Yi Xian really hadn't expected that the woman would actually run away with the green profound sword. Doesn't she want any face at all? Meanwhile, Xiao Ta spoke in a low voice, "Young master, this woman chose to be shameless just like you. What should we do? What should I do?" Yi Xian was speechless. What else can I do? In this damnable place, I'm simply like a little brother without the green profound sword. Truthfully speaking, he was slightly panicking now. Because he couldn't sense the green profound sword anymore. However, he knew that the woman would definitely come back to look for him. Without his authorization, it was utterly impossible for the woman to use the green profound sword. But the problem was, what should he do during this period of time before the woman came back to look for him? If he encountered those four fellows that were neither human nor ghost, then he would probably be dead on the spot. Right at this moment, a horrifying and strange voice suddenly resounded from afar. Yi Xian's scalp went numb when he heard this voice, and he turned around and ran. He knew that those four bastards had come. Yi Xian ran madly all the way, and it wasn't long before he arrived at a desolate mountain. The mountain was extremely gloomy, and the surroundings were filled with bone-piercing coldness. Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young master, this place doesn't seem to be a place for ordinary people to stay." Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings. Right at this moment, a group of people suddenly appeared in the distance. This group of people seemed like a wedding procession, and all of them wore blood-red robes and carried a blood-red palanquin. Yi Xian had a slight headache when he saw this scene. Damn it. Do they have to make it so strange? Meanwhile, those four rotten people in white robes appeared not too far behind Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at the white and red figures before him, and he felt extremely pained. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly resounded from within the palanquin. The aura of a living person. It was a woman's voice. Along with this voice, a woman walked out. The woman wore a large red robe and a phoenix coronet, and she looked like a bride that was about to get married. Yi Xian glanced at the woman, his expression calm, and asked in his heart, "Xiao Ta, what do you think will happen if Qing'er comes here and meets this group of gaudy hares?" After a moment of silence, Xiao Ta said, "A grand burial." Xiao Ta, at this moment, the woman in the red dress slowly walked in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian did not run, because he could not escape at all. The woman in the red dress moved closer to Yi Xian. She blinked and asked, "Did you come in from outside?" Yi Xian nodded. The red-dressed woman chuckled. "I heard that you are Hong Zhao's man." Yi Xian frowned. "Hong Zhao?" The woman said with smile, "The woman you met before." "Hong Zhao." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "She's just using me as a shield." The woman looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "Then you are doomed. Death Lord will not let you off." Yi Xian's expression was calm. "He should know that she's just using me as a shield." The woman blinked. "So what if he knows? To him, you are just an ant. Hong Zhao used you to make him unhappy. He can't do anything to Hong Zhao, but he can do anything to you." Yi Xian sighed softly. "Don't they say that experts of your level can foresee life and death danger? I am standing in front of you, can't you feel the danger?" The woman looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian said again, "Don't they say that we can foresee fortune and disaster? Don't tell me that you have lost this ability." The woman smiled slightly. "Do you know why you are still alive?" Yi Xian frowned. The woman moved closer to Yi Xian. She blinked and said, "Do you think Hong Zhao is a kind woman? Do you think she didn't kill you because you are handsome?" Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, "That, isn't it?" The woman was stunned, and then she shook her head and smiled. "You are really shameless." Yi Xian was speechless. The woman smiled. "She didn't kill you because she sensed danger. Otherwise, you would have been sucked dry by her a long time ago." Yi Xian glanced at the rotting man in white robes behind him. The four of them were obviously afraid of the woman, so they did not dare to attack. Yi Xian withdrew his gaze and looked at the woman in front of him. "Miss, how should I address you?" The woman blinked. "Jia Yi." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Miss Jia Yi, it is not a coincidence that you are here, right?" Jia Yi nodded. Yi Xian asked, "Are we enemies?" Jia Yi looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "I am not sure." Yi Xian asked again, "Do you have a grudge against Hong Zhao?" Jia Yi didn't follow Yi Xian's rhythm. He smiled. "What do you want to say?" Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Can we talk somewhere else?" Jia Yi glanced at the four white-robed ghosts behind Yi Xian and smiled. "You want me to help you deal with them?" Yi Xian suddenly said, "Excuse me." With that, he led Jia Yi into Xiao Ta. Jia Yi's eyes narrowed when he entered Xiao Ta. Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm, and the blood in his body suddenly boiled. Jia Yi looked at Yi Xian, but Yi Xian still didn't speak. After a long time, Jia Yi suddenly smiled. "This Xiao Ta, and your blood. Well, actually, it is not important. The main thing is that I want to be friends with you. Yi Xian, Jia Yi smiled. Young master, let's go. I have been annoyed by those four for a long time. I can fix them today. With that, he led Yi Xian away from Xiao Ta. Jia Yi glanced at the four in the distance, and he waved his sleeve. Bang! The four were instantly blasted 30 kilometers away by a powerful force. Meanwhile, Jia Yi suddenly said, "This young master is my guest. Get lost and don't disturb him." In the distance, the leader of the group spoke in a low voice. Master Jia, he is the one that Death Lord wants to kill. Jia Yi spoke indifferently. What? Are you going to use your Death Lord to pressure me? The man bowed slightly. I dare not. Jia Ye's eyes narrowed. Get lost. The man didn't dare to say anything. He just glanced at Yi Xian and said hoarsely, "No one can protect you forever." With that, he was about to leave. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Wait." The man turned around to gaze at Yi Xian. Yi Xian suddenly gazed at Jia Yi, walked over to Jia Ye's side, and spoke softly, "Can that bastard reverse time?" Jia Yi glanced at the man and shook his head. It can't. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he gazed at the man. A moment later, Yi Xian vanished on the spot. A sword howl resounded abruptly. It wasn't life-severing, it was an instant of life and death. In the distance, the leader of the group suddenly took a step forward, and then he smashed his fist forward. As he punched out, countless wisps of black gas swept out from his fist. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's sword arrived before him. Bang! Along with a burst of sword light, a sword directly pierced through the decaying man's fist, and then it pierced through his arm and into his chest. Bang! The decaying man was instantly nailed to the space-time tens of thousands of feet away by the sword. At this moment, the man was stunned. Yi Xian opened his palm and waved it, and then a few dozen strands of sword energy shot forward. Hiss! 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 The other three white-robed ghosts weren't even able to react before they were slashed into pieces. Yi Xian walked over to the white-robed ghost who was nailed to the ground. "Do you think I'm very weak?" The white-robed ghost gulped and said, "You. If you aren't weak, then why are you running?" Yi Xian fell silent. Damn it. Didn't I think you knew how to reverse time? So it turns out that you don't. Based on his current strength, besides experts who could reverse time, no other experts were a match for him. Actually, even if it was a powerhouse like Hong Zhao, if he didn't use this method of reversing time, he would still have the power to fight. Yi Xian didn't waste his breath. He just flicked his sleeve, and a ray of light instantly killed the white-robed ghost. Jia Yi smiled. He's the Death Lord's subordinate. Killing him is equivalent to slapping the Death Lord's face. Now, there's enmity between the two of you. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "Miss Jia Yi, can you tell me about this place?" Jia Yi was quite surprised. "You don't know about this place?" Yi Xian nodded. "It's my first time." Cassiopeia took a look at Yi Xian. After a while, she said, "The dead world is a cursed place." Yi Xian frowned. "It's cursed?" Jia Yi nodded and spoke softly. "A very long time ago, it was actually a normal world. But something happened here, and it caused an extremely vicious curse to be placed here. Everyone in this world will become the living dead, and they'll never be able to leave this world. As for the people here, because they have inhaled too much of the death qi, they only have the death qi in their bodies and no life qi." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Only death energy?" Jia Yi nodded. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "If there's only death energy in your body, then what form do you live in?" Jia Yi smiled. "The living dead. Those who are slightly stronger can barely suppress the death aura and prevent it from completely corroding us. Those who are not strong will be like those ghosts you killed just now. Their bodies and souls will be corroded by the death aura, and they will eventually become monsters." Yi Xian nodded. "I see. By the way, who cursed this place?" Jia Yi fell silent. Yi Xian asked, "Can't say?" Jia Yi shook her head, "I don't dare to say." Yi Xian frowned, "He's still here?" Jia Yi nodded. Yi Xian looked around, "Damn, looks like I need to keep a low profile." As if thinking of something, Yi Xian looked at Jia Yi, "Miss Jia Yi, your attire." Jia Yi smiled, "I'm waiting for my fiancé." Yi Xian frowned, "Fiancé? Is he out?" Jia Yi shook her head, "He's dead." Yi Xian's expression froze. Waiting for a dead person? Jia Yi said softly, he couldn't resist the death energy in his body, so, she shook her head, "Let's not talk about the past. I'll take you to see someone." Yi Xian was curious, "Who?" Jia Yi said, "Someone who said you can save this world." Yi Xian. Chapter 2085. Save this world? Yi Xian frowned. He was just about to ask something when Jia Yi brought him to a valley. In this valley, there was a simple bamboo house. In front of the bamboo house was a sea of flowers, and in the middle of the flowers stood a woman. She wore a cloud-colored dress and held a flower basket in her hand. Meanwhile, she turned to look at Yi Xian and smiled, "Young Master Yi." "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian frowned slightly, "You know me?" The corners of the woman's mouth curled up slightly, "Of course." As she spoke, she placed the flower basket to the side and walked over to a stone table. "Let's sit down and talk." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he sat down in front of the woman. The woman smiled, "Young Master Yi, I'm Huang, the Huang from the Grand Wilderness." Yi Xian looked at her, "Miss Huang, you know me?" Huang nodded. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Meanwhile, Huang smiled, "I know Miss Nian. Big Sister Nian." Yi Xian was struck dumb right away. Miss Huang smiled. "I've met her before and I've asked her for help. However, she said that in order to break the curse, there are only 3 people in this world that she knows of who can do it. And these 3 people are absolutely not people the world of death can come into contact with, nor are they people we can invite." At this point, she looked at Yi Xian, but she also said that one person can invite them. Yi Xian fell silent. Obviously, that person was him. Huang suddenly stood up and bowed slightly to Yi Xian, "Young Master Yi, please lend a hand and save the living beings of this world." Yi Xian looked at Huang, "Big Sister Nian told you to look for me?" Huang nodded. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Since Sister Nian had spoken like this, it was obvious that she hoped that he could break the curse of this place. "Contact Qing'er?" Yi Xian suddenly looked at Miss Huang. "Miss Huang, since Sister Nian has spoken, I have no reason to refuse. However, I don't know how you treat me. If she knew, she wouldn't have let you come to me." Hearing this, Miss Huang frowned, "Did something happen?" Yi Xian said calmly, "As soon as I came here, your people destroyed my body. Not only that, she even stole my sword. Apart from that, that Death Lord sent people to kill me time and time again." At this point, he shook his head. "The more I think about it, the angrier I get." Miss Huang looked at Jia Yi, who nodded slightly. Miss Huang's expression immediately turned cold. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Miss Huang, I really don't want to trouble my sister because of this world. How about this? I'll take you out, or I'll think of a way to remove your curse. As for this world, I'm truly powerless." Miss Huang hesitated for a moment and said, "Young Master Yi, I understand your grievances. How about this? Wait a moment, I'll deal with it for you." Yi Xian blinked. "Miss Huang, are you the strongest here?" Miss Huang shook her head. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "Then you might not be able to deal with it. As I said before, I'll think of a way to remove your curse. As for this world, I'm powerless." Miss Huang hesitated for a moment and said, "But Miss Nian," Yi Xian smiled. "Big Sister Nian definitely doesn't know that you people here bully me. Otherwise, she wouldn't have asked you to come find me. I firmly believe this. In this world, the one who treated him the best was definitely Qing'er, and the second was Big Sister Nian. As for his father, he directly overlooked him. Miss Huang suddenly looked at Jia Yi. Where's Hong Zhao? Jia Yi shook his head. I don't know where she went. Miss Huang spoke in a low voice. Tell her to come find me. Jia Yi hesitated for a moment before he nodded. All right. As soon as she finished speaking, she closed her eyes slowly, and the space before her started to tremble. It didn't take long for the space before them to shatter, and then a woman walked out from within. It was Hong Zhao. Hong Zhao was slightly stunned when she saw Yi Xian. You're not dead? Yi Xian's face darkened. Meanwhile, Miss Huang suddenly waved her right hand. Slap. A clear and resounding slap resounded. Hong Zhao's body was blasted apart before she could even react. Only her soul remained. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched when he witnessed this scene. Damn it. That woman is that strong? He knew how strong Hong Zhao was. She wasn't just able to reverse time, she could even shatter the green profound sword. But such a terrifying woman had actually been blasted apart by a single slap. Shouldn't I be more humble when I speak? Hong Zhao was stunned as well. She gazed at Miss Huang with a bewildered expression. Huang. Miss Huang's expression was icy cold. Apologize to young Master Yi. Apologize. Hong Zhao gazed at Yi Xian. Why? Miss Huang's eyes narrowed slightly. I'll give you one last chance. Hong Zhao's expression instantly changed drastically. She hurriedly gazed at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, I'm sorry. Yi Xian said, where's my sword? Hong Zhao hesitated for a moment before she said, it's in the Death Lord's hands. Yi Xian frowned slightly. The Death Lord's hands? Hong Zhao nodded. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice, how could it be in the Death Lord's hands? Hong Zhao glanced at Miss Huang and fell silent. Yi Xian suddenly said, did you notice that you couldn't use it, so you gave it to the Death Lord so that I would form irreconcilable enmity with him? Hong Zhao gazed at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Yi Xian sighed softly. Miss Hong Zhao, look at what you've done. I trusted you so much, yet you just took my sword and ran. Most importantly, you didn't just use me as a shield, you even tried to drive a wedge between me and the Death Lord. You actually dared to do such a shameless thing. Hong Zhao's expression was calm, and she didn't speak. Meanwhile, Miss Huang spoke abruptly. Young Master Yi, if you still don't feel satisfied, then you can kill her. Hong Zhao's expression instantly changed drastically. Miss Huang. Miss Huang ignored her. Hong Zhao suddenly turned to look at Yi Xian. I underestimated your backer. Yi Xian shook his head. He looked at Miss Huang. Miss Huang, can you deal with the Death Lord? Miss Huang looked at Jia Yi. Ask him to come see me. Yi Xian was speechless. Jia Yi nodded slightly, and then he spoke via voice transmission. It didn't take long for the space not too far away from them to tremble, and then a middle-aged man walked out from within it. The middle-aged man wore a black robe, had an aged appearance, gray eyes, and a dense aura of death. The Death Lord. The Death Lord glanced at Yi Xian, and then he gazed at Miss Huang. Miss Huang, do you need something from me? Miss Huang looked the Death Lord in the eyes. Where's young Master Yi's sword? The Death Lord's eyes narrowed slightly. What? Does Miss Huang intend to stand up for this outsider? A wisp of a ferocious expression flashed through Miss Huang's eyes. She opened her palm, and then a petal suddenly flew up from the garden. In the next moment, everything here became illusory. Hong Zhao and Jia Yi's expressions changed drastically when they saw the petal. The Death Lord's pupils constricted. He raised his right hand slightly and pressed it down lightly. In an instant, the space around him started to slow down. It was time reversal. However, as soon as the petal arrived here, something seemed to have been torn apart, and then everyone watched as the petal shot into the center of the Death Lord's forehead. Bang! The Death Lord's figure shook violently, and then countless strands of death energy were obliterated. At this moment, the expressions of Hong Zhao, Jia Yi, and Yi Xian had become extremely solemn. Miss Huang's petal had actually destroyed the Death Lord's time reversal technique. The Death Lord stared fixedly at Miss Huang. You. Miss Huang suddenly opened her palm, and then a sword flew out from within the Death Lord's body and fell firmly into her grasp. Miss Huang sized up the sword, and then she returned it to Yi Xian, young Master Yi. Yi Xian took the sword and said, "Didn't you say that you weren't the strongest here?" Miss Huang blinked. "I think that I should be humble." Yi Xian was speechless. Miss Huang glanced at Hong Zhao and the Death Lord. "Young Master Yi, do you want them to die?" Hong Zhao and the Death Lord's expressions changed when they heard this. Yi Xian smiled. "That's up to you." Miss Huang nodded slightly. "I understand." As she spoke, she was about to attack. Meanwhile, Hong Zhao suddenly said, "Miss Huang, you haven't fought for almost 1,000,000 years, so why are you helping that human?" Miss Huang spoke indifferently, "Because he can save this world." Hong Zhao was stunned, and then she spoke furiously, "Him? How could that be possible? It's absolutely impossible." Miss Huang shook her head. "It's impossible for him, but the person behind him can." Hong Zhao spoke ferociously, "No one in this world can resist that fellow." "No one." Miss Huang shook her head slightly, and she was about to attack. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Just kill that man." Miss Huang glanced at Yi Xian, and then she nodded and was about to attack. However, the Death Lord suddenly said, "I don't believe it as well." Miss Huang gazed at Yi Xian, and then she nodded and was about to attack. The Death Lord suddenly said, "I don't believe it as well." Miss Huang gazed at Yi Xian and waited for Yi Xian's instructions. Yi Xian frowned slightly. "I don't care if you believe it or not." "But I didn't believe you, so you killed me?" Yi Xian said calmly, "Because she is a woman, and a beautiful woman." Yi Xian spoke indifferently, "Because she's a woman, and a beautiful woman at that." The Death Lord was first stunned, and then she was furious. "You old pervert." Bang! The Death Lord's body trembled violently, and then she was instantly absorbed by the green profound sword. The other three women were speechless. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword flew back into his grasp. He gazed at Miss Huang who stood before him. "Miss Huang, your strength is so terrifying, yet you're still unable to deal with the curse here?" Miss Huang nodded. "I can't." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "Who exactly placed the curse here?" Miss Huang fell silent for a moment before she said, "A woman." "A woman." Yi Xian felt a headache coming on. Why are all women so terrifying? Miss Huang hesitated for a moment, and then she said, "Young Master Yi, I really trust Miss Nian. However, I have to remind you that the person who placed the curse here is so strong that even I feel that he's unfathomable. Many monstrous geniuses have appeared in the world of death throughout the years, but so long as anyone dares to break the curse, then they die without a doubt. Will the person behind you be able to do it?" Yi Xian was just about to speak when Miss Huang's expression suddenly changed drastically. She suddenly pulled Yi Xian behind her, and then she pointed a finger forward. Bang! The space in front of Miss Huang trembled violently, and then her finger was actually being obliterated at a terrifying speed. Moreover, it was spreading towards her body, and in an instant, her entire right arm had vanished. Miss Huang didn't care about her hand, and she suddenly turned around. Meanwhile, a pure white hand had suddenly grabbed onto Yi Xian's throat. Only a hand. Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Don't hurt my young master." The hand suddenly let go of Yi Xian, and in the next moment, it grabbed onto Xiao Ta and tightened its grip. Bang! Xiao Ta trembled violently, and his body directly cracked into a spider web. Xiao Ta wailed, "I take back what I said just now. You can hurt me all you want. Don't hit me. I'm just a tower." Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. Don't ask me why there are 3 chapters. If you ask, then you're being willful. Having a draft is being willful. Chapter 2086. A hand. Everyone here had extremely solemn expressions on their faces. There was only a single hand, but it was exactly that hand that caused everyone here to feel despair. That included Yi Xian, who held the green profound sword. Yi Xian remained silent. He was on the verge of collapse. Can I really stay cool for 3 days? I just thought I was invincible, yet I've become the little brother now. Damn it. What a fucking life. Desolation slowly clenched her left hand, and then a powerful strand of energy condensed within it. She stared fixedly at that hand. You've cursed this city for over 10 million years. Is that still not enough? Enough? Meanwhile, a resentful voice resounded from somewhere. Even if I have a lifetime, it wouldn't be enough. Desolation spoke furiously. How long do you intend to trap this world for? The voice replied, forever. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly waved her hand. Bang! Desolation was blasted over 10 kilometers away, and the space where she resided instantly shattered as soon as she stopped. She couldn't fight back at all. Jia Yi and Hong Zhao's eyes were filled with terror. That woman. That woman who'd cursed this place for 10 million years. Desolation wiped off the blood on the corner of her mouth, and then she gazed at Yi Xian. Flee. Flee. Yi Xian laughed bitterly. How do I flee? Even you're being bashed, so where would I flee to? Meanwhile, that hand suddenly pointed a finger at Desolation. Desolation's pupils constricted. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of her, and then he opened his palm and a strand of sword energy appeared in his grasp. It was his father's sword energy. With the appearance of this sword energy, the hand suddenly stopped moving. The surroundings suddenly fell silent. Yi Xian gazed at the hand with a calm expression on his face. Want to have a talk? The voice ridiculed, you aren't worthy. As the voice fell, the jade-like hand suddenly floated up slowly. The next moment, an extremely terrifying power suddenly condensed in her right hand. With the appearance of this power, the entire world of the dead began to boil, and then it began to burn bit by bit. Yi Xian's eyes instantly narrowed when he witnessed this scene. Damn it. This was the first time he had seen someone choose to face his father's sword chi head-on. It was impossible for the other party not to know how terrifying father's sword chi was. However, the other party still chose to face it head-on. What did this mean? This meant that the opponent had the confidence to resist his father's sword chi. Of course, Yi Xian, who had his father's sword energy in his hand, didn't back down. He was about to activate his sword energy and kill this woman. He didn't believe that this woman could withstand his father's sword chi. Although his father was a vicious tiger that ate his own children, his strength was undeniable. If a wisp of sword chi couldn't kill this woman, it would be too degrading. Just as Yi Xian was about to completely activate the sword chi, Desolation suddenly pulled Yi Xian's arm. She looked at Yi Xian and shook her head. If this wisp of sword chi is released, together with her power, it will destroy the entire world of the dead in an instant. Yi Xian was silent. As Huang said, once this strand of sword energy was released, together with that woman's power, forget about the entire death realm, even he himself might not necessarily be able to survive. However, he had no choice but to fight. Suddenly, Huang looked at the hand. He's Miss Nian Nian's younger brother. Nian Nian. The hand suddenly trembled slightly, and a moment later, the voice resounded, so what? Huang spoke solemnly, can't we talk? The voice suddenly became ferocious, talk? Did they give me a chance to talk all those years ago? Huang frowned slightly, you've already annihilated their entire clan. The voice roared, is that enough? Huang fell silent. Crack. Meanwhile, the space in front of Huang was suddenly torn apart. In the next moment, a woman in white walked out slowly. Needless to say, the woman was truly too beautiful. Huang, Jiayi, and Hong Zhao were all peerless beauties, but they instantly paled in comparison to this woman. However, the woman's eyes were extremely cold and devoid of any emotion. The woman walked slowly towards Huang, descendant of the Desolate clan. The reason I didn't kill you was because your Desolate clan was the only one that didn't attack my clan all those years ago. However, that doesn't mean you have the right to talk to me. As she spoke, she turned to glare coldly at Yi Xian. And you, who do you think you are? What right do you have to meddle in other people's business? Just because you have someone backing you? The person backing you is strong, but that's the matter of the person backing you. What has it got to do with you? You don't have the strength, yet you still want to meddle in other people's business. In the end, the person backing you has to clean up after you. Don't you feel ashamed? Yi Xian shook his head. Don't use words to ruin my state of mind. I'm very thick-skinned, and any verbal insults have no effect on me. The woman stared coldly at Yi Xian. What, are you proud of being a second generation? Yi Xian shook his head again. I'm not proud, but I'm a second generation. Is that wrong of me? Isn't it my father and sister who are wrong? Who told them to be so strong? They're strong, but I'm the second generation. Besides, is it up to me to decide whether they're strong or not? The woman stared fixedly at Yi Xian, not saying a word. She suddenly found that she was a little speechless. Yi Xian continued, also, I'm a second generation, but I don't take advantage of my power to bully others. At most, I'm just showing off. Is it against the law to show off? Is it wrong to show off? Besides, when I failed to show off and got beaten up, did I call for help? I don't think I called for help. You bullied me until now, did I call for help? Did I? Huh. The woman looked coldly at Yi Xian, not saying a word. Yi Xian continued, I've never thought that being a second generation is that great. On the contrary, you don't know how much pressure I'm under, because my goal in this life is to surpass my father and sister, but my father and sister are so invincible. At this point, he shook his head, this kind of pain, you can't understand. The woman looked coldly at Yi Xian, human, I don't want to see you show off here. I'll give you two choices, 1, you leave this place, 2, you call for help. Yi Xian immediately said, I choose to call for help. The woman narrowed her eyes, didn't you say that you don't rely on your family? Yi Xian smiled, since Sister Nian asked her to find me, then I'll definitely do my best. As he said that, he opened his palm and the green profound sword appeared in it. He slowly closed his eyes, whispering in his heart, I know you can hear me, can you come out and beat this woman up? There was no response. Yi Xian frowned, how is this possible? Yi Xian asked again, are you there? Still no response. Yi Xian's face darkened, he continued, Still no response. Yi Xian's expression froze, this couldn't have fallen asleep, could she? He tried to call out a few more times, but there was still no response. This time, cold sweat dripped down Yi Xian's forehead. At the side, the women were looking at Yi Xian. In front of Yi Xian, the woman said, what's wrong, is there a problem? Yi Xian looked at the woman, then slowly closed his eyes. Dad? No response. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment. Then he said, Dad, I have never asked you for help. Please help me this time. Still no response. Yi Xian's face darkened, Dad? Still no response. Yi Xian's face darkened. Xiao Ta suddenly said, Young master. I'm a little nervous now. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, can you contact Dad? Xiao Ta said, no. Master is too far away from me. Why don't we use the same trick again and ask this woman to use the green profound sword to sense big sister Tianming? Yi Xian thought about it for a long time, and then he nodded. All right. As he spoke, he passed the green profound sword to the woman. You'll be able to sense my younger sister through this sword. The woman took the sword, but she didn't sense it. Instead, she gazed at Yi Xian and said, "Why should I sense your younger sister?" Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, "You're so invincible. Don't you want to meet someone stronger?" The woman frowned slightly. "What logic is that? I have to find someone stronger to fight because I'm strong?" Yi Xian spoke in a low voice, "Do you think my younger sister is stronger than you as well?" The woman shook her head. "Don't try to provoke me like that. I'm not interested in your younger sister, and I'm even less interested in you. Since you can't get someone to come, then I'll have to beat you up." Yi Xian's expression immediately changed. At this moment, the woman flicked her sleeves. Bang! Yi Xian was blasted flying, and he flew over 30 kilometers away. When his figure finally stopped, his body had split apart while blood sprayed out. The woman glanced coldly at Yi Xian, and she intended to attack again. However, Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green-clothed man's sword energy appeared in his grasp. The woman gazed at Yi Xian while her eyes narrowed slightly. "Didn't you say that you don't rely on your father and younger sister?" Yi Xian spoke angrily, "You're about to beat me to death, yet you don't allow me to rely on my father?" The woman's face remained emotionless. "You're about to be beaten to death by me. Why haven't I seen your father?" "What? Are you not his biological son?" Yi Xian's face froze. Xiao Ta suddenly said, "That hurts." Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, Desolation spoke abruptly, "Young Master Yi, you should leave." Yi Xian looked at Desolation, and Desolation spoke softly, "Didn't she give you two choices? Choose the first one." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "What about you?" The woman suddenly said, "You can't even protect yourself, and you still care about her?" Yi Xian said in a low voice, "I don't care about others, but I have to care about Sister Nian's friend." As he spoke, he appeared in front of Desolation. He looked at the woman in front of him and said fiercely, "I can't beat you, but..." The woman looked coldly at Yi Xian, "But what?" Yi Xian said in a low voice, "But..." At this point, he stopped talking. The woman mocked, "But what? Tell me. Tell me." Yi Xian said angrily, "But my father can beat you. My younger sister can beat you. Everyone," the woman mocked, "You don't have your father, and you don't have your sister. What are you?" Yi Xian said angrily, "I still have an elder brother." The woman's expression froze. The women almost collapsed. Chapter 2087. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the woman's face turned cold. In fact, the reason she listened to Yi Xian's nonsense was because she sensed that the person who made the cyan profound sword was extraordinary. Moreover, the sword energy in Yi Xian's hand was so terrifying. The owner of the sword energy must be stronger than her. If she really killed Yi Xian, she would be stained with karma. Although she was strong, she didn't think she was invincible. She had to admit that encountering this kind of second generation was a headache. She couldn't fight. Curse. She couldn't win an argument, compromise. She was unwilling. Why should she compromise with a second generation? The woman looked at Yi Xian. "You said you haven't called the person behind you for a long time, right?" Yi Xian nodded. The woman stared at Yi Xian. "So, you want to rely on yourself?" Yi Xian glanced at the woman. "Under normal circumstances, I won't call for help. But if you want to kill me, I'll call for help. Because you're much stronger than me." The woman nodded. "How about this? I'll give you a chance. You and I will seal our cultivation and have a fair fight." Yi Xian frowned. "A fair fight?" The woman nodded. "Let's compete on foundation and battle awareness." Yi Xian was silent. The woman looked at Yi Xian and was about to mock when Yi Xian suddenly said, "I agree." The woman stared at Yi Xian. "The bet is that if you lose, you'll get lost. If I lose, I'll let you and Huang go." Yi Xian was silent for a moment. "Deal. If Qing and his father didn't show up, he couldn't save the entire realm of the dead. Although he wanted to act tough, he had to act tough within his limits. If he didn't have enough strength, he'd be an idiot. At this moment, Huang walked to Yi Xian's side. She looked at Yi Xian and asked, "Are you confident?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "No." Desolation's expression froze. Yi Xian smiled and said, "I will do my best." As he spoke, he looked at the woman in the distance. "Miss, how should I address you?" The woman was expressionless. "What does my name have to do with you?" Yi Xian was speechless. The woman said, "Cut the crap, let's begin." Yi Xian nodded slightly. He opened his palm and a sword appeared in his hand. Seal all cultivation. The two of them would compete in their foundations and battle awareness. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Calm state. The moment his heart calmed down, the sword in his hand trembled slightly. In the distance, the woman had a calm expression. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared on the spot. The woman suddenly raised two fingers and gently clamped them. This clamp directly caught Yi Xian's sword. Then, she took advantage of the situation and flicked it. Boom! Yi Xian's sword shattered. At this moment, a sword appeared between the woman's brows without any warning. A flying sword. This was Yi Xian's true killing move. Facing this sudden flying sword, the woman's expression was very calm. She took a step back and swept her fingers. Boom! The flying sword was directly swept away. But in the next moment, another flying sword slashed down. There was no sword chi or sword intent, nor was there any power of space-time. It was just pure speed and strength. The woman stood on the spot with a calm expression. When the flying sword slashed in front of her, she suddenly moved to the side and dodged it. In the next moment, she took advantage of the situation to charge forward and strike with her elbow. Yi Xian blocked it with his sword. Bang! Yi Xian was directly forced back by this elbow strike. Before Yi Xian could stop, the woman appeared in front of him once more. At the same time, her right hand had clamped down on his throat. In the next moment, she exerted force with her right hand. However, at this moment, her expression changed abruptly because Yi Xian had taken the initiative to shatter his body. He'd taken the initiative to destroy his body. At the moment his body shattered, Yi Xian's sword stabbed between the woman's brows. However, it had only entered half an inch when it stopped because the woman's hand had clamped his sword again. Yi Xian suddenly released his right hand and floated backwards. At the same time, a flying sword flew towards the woman again. The woman's expression was calm as she lightly swept Yi Xian's sword between her fingers. Boom! Both swords were obliterated. The woman looked at Yi Xian in the distance. You took the initiative to abandon your body. How decisive of you. In the distance, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Focus. On the side, the woman frowned slightly. Focus. Yi Xian suddenly disappeared on the spot. The woman turned her body slightly and a sword stabbed between her brows. At this moment, the sword suddenly stopped and slapped horizontally. The woman blocked it with her fingers. Smack. A crisp sound rang out. The woman retreated several feet. Just as she stopped, another sword stabbed her. It was seamless. The woman frowned slightly. She clamped her fingers together and clamped Yi Xian's sword again before exerting force. Boom! The sword shattered. However, the next moment, another sword stabbed her. The woman punched out. Boom! That sword shattered. However, at this moment, Yi Xian was already more than 10 feet away. He stood there with his sword in hand and his eyes were still closed. The woman looked at Yi Xian calmly, but there was a trace of surprise in the depths of her eyes. She realized that she seemed to have underestimated this swordsman. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly took a step forward. With this step, a sword directly appeared between the woman's brows. The woman pointed with her fingers. This time, she chose to take it head-on. Boom! Yi Xian's sword was stopped on the spot by this finger. However, at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly let go of the sword. The sword circled around the woman's fingers at a strange angle and slashed diagonally at her neck. The woman's expression was calm as she flicked her left fingers to the left. Bang! The sword was directly repelled. However, at this moment, another sword stabbed her. This sword was not fast, but it came at the perfect time. Perfect connection. The woman suddenly opened her right hand and pressed down lightly. However, the next moment, her pupils constricted because she noticed that Yi Xian had transformed into a sword ray and entered the sword. His soul and sword had completely fused. Could it be done like this? The woman wanted to stop, but it was too late. Pust. The sword pierced through her palm and entered her right hand. The most terrifying thing was that Yi Xian's soul had entered her body as well. One body with two souls. The woman was stunned. Yi Xian was also stunned at this moment. Actually, fusing his soul with the sword was a sudden thought he'd had because he could fuse with the sword. However, he hadn't expected that his strength would actually multiply after his soul fused with the sword. Moreover, he hadn't expected that his soul would enter the woman's body by relying on the sword. Fuck. What's going on? Right at this moment, a terrifying force suddenly smashed down towards his soul. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically. Fuck. This woman doesn't care about martial virtue. She's actually recovered her cultivation. Moreover, she intends to destroy my soul. At this critical moment, Yi Xian couldn't be bothered about anything else. He directly utilized the green profound sword to suppress the woman's soul. Moreover, he even activated his bloodline energy to suppress her bloodline. Bang! In an instant, the woman's body trembled violently. Her expression instantly changed, and she hurriedly stopped. Her expression was extremely unsightly. Show yourself. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. Woman, you didn't keep your word. You actually recovered your cultivation. The woman spoke fiercely. Are you coming out or not? She didn't dare to forcefully attack because Yi Xian's sword was extremely powerful against her soul. Moreover, Yi Xian's bloodline energy was suppressing her own bloodline as well. If Yi Xian was a bit stronger, he might even be able to seize her body. Of course, Yi Xian's current strength was far from being able to accomplish that. However, Yi Xian could cause destruction. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. I'm not coming out. Going out would only result in a beating. The woman suddenly looked at Huang. If you don't come out, then I'll kill her. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green-clothed man's sword energy appeared. He spoke indifferently. If you dare to attack, then I'll activate this strand of sword energy. You might be able to survive in the outside world, but you definitely won't be able to survive in here. The woman's expression was ferocious. Are you threatening me? Yi Xian said angrily. I am threatening you. You don't care about martial virtue. We agreed to have a fair battle, yet you recovered your strength. You're even more shameless than me. The woman spoke in a low voice. Come out and let's continue. Yi Xian flared up with rage, as if I'd believe you. The woman's eyes narrowed slightly. Then do you intend to live here forever? Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings and said, I think it's pretty good. The woman's expression returned to calm. Do you think I can't do anything to you? She slowly closed her eyes as she spoke. Yi Xian's expression instantly changed greatly. Damn it. This woman's sea of consciousness wants to enter my sea of consciousness. She wants to seize my body instead. The woman acted immediately, and her sea of consciousness directly invaded Yi Xian's sea of consciousness. However, Yi Xian hurriedly said, Little soul, suppress my sea of consciousness. The green profound sword immediately fused into one with Yi Xian to resist the woman. However, the woman still entered Yi Xian's sea of consciousness, and she intended to directly suppress Yi Xian's consciousness. However, Yi Xian naturally wouldn't resign himself to death, and he started to resist. Needless to say, this woman was extraordinarily terrifying. Even with the assistance of the green profound sword, Yi Xian was only barely able to resist the invasion of her consciousness. As for that strand of sword qi, he didn't dare to use it rashly. Because using it here would cause both good and bad to perish together. So, he wouldn't use that strand of sword qi unless he had no other choice. Meanwhile, the woman spoke fiercely, "I'll make you restrain yourself." As soon as she finished speaking, she started to invade Yi Xian's sea of consciousness like a madman. Yi Xian's expression changed greatly, and he hurriedly resisted. However, he gradually lost his footing under the invasion of the woman's consciousness. Right at this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young master, do you need help?" Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, "Can you help?" Xiao Ta said, "Of course. Let me tell you, master's consciousness was almost devoured by others many times in the past, and it was always me who protected him. Simply speaking, when it comes to possession, so long as I, Xiao Ta, am around, then there won't be any mishaps." Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Then hurry up and help." Xiao Ta said, "All right." As he spoke, he transformed into a golden ray of light and entered Yi Xian's sea of consciousness. Bang! After he fused with Xiao Ta, Yi Xian's sea of consciousness instantly strengthened by more than 10 times. The woman's expression instantly changed greatly, and at this moment, Yi Xian's consciousness drowned her consciousness. It wasn't destroyed. However, their consciousnesses had fused together. In an instant, countless memories of each other surged into their minds. At this moment, both of them were in each other's minds. Chapter 2088. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. The woman was also dumbfounded. Both of them were dumbfounded. Because neither of their consciousnesses was able to devour the other, the most important thing was that their consciousnesses seemed to have fused, and they both had the other's memories. There was me in you, and you in me. Both of them were completely dumbfounded. Beloved. This woman's name was Beloved. And this woman was also a person from this world of the dead. Millions of years ago, the woman shocked this world the moment she was born. Because the woman was born with one of the 10 great evil bodies, the cursed body. The cursed body. Among all the evil bodies, it was ranked first. It symbolized a disaster and also an ominous sign. Because of this, the woman was not welcomed by her family when she was born. She didn't have any friends in her family, and everyone despised her and hated her. Even her father didn't care about her. Only her mother was by her side. Although the woman was lonely, as long as her mother was there, she felt satisfied. But when she was 16, a disaster occurred in this world. The spiritual energy was exhausted. It was similar to the fifth dimension tribulation. In any universe, one's lifespan would come to an end. However, at that time, the people of this world thought that the disaster was caused by the woman. They thought that the Supreme Tendo was punishing the people of this world, and that the Tendo was punishing the people of this world because of Beloved. As a result, a tragedy occurred. In order to appease the public, the woman's family handed her over to the Tendo, but her mother was killed to protect her. Seeing her mother die in front of her, the woman's cursed body was completely awakened. Next, the woman used herself as a medium to curse the entire world. Not only would the people of this world be unable to leave, but they would also become the living dead, rotting and dying little by little. Not only them, but their descendants would also be cursed, unable to leave this world for generations to come. They would then rot and die. Yi Xian collected his thoughts. He had to admit that this Beloved was quite pitiful. At this moment, he somewhat understood why the woman's resentment was so great. Because the people of this city didn't even give her a chance, and they even forced the only person she could rely on to die in front of her. Yi Xian sighed in a low voice. What a sin. On the side, the Beloved stared at Yi Xian. At this moment, she also had all of Yi Xian's memories. However, there were 3 people whose memories she did not have. These three people were the woman in the plain dress, the man in the green shirt, and the swordsman. When she fused with Yi Xian's memories, everything about these three people was automatically displayed to her. She also wanted to forcefully explore them, but she was shocked to find that she couldn't do it at all. It was obvious that the three of them were stronger than her. Actually, when she saw Yi Xian's azure profound sword and that strand of sword qi, she already knew that the person behind Yi Xian was stronger than her. Otherwise, she would utterly not give Yi Xian the chance to compete. Negotiation? Without strength, who would negotiate with you? At this moment, Yi Xian directly left her lover's body. Her lover looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian turned to look at Huang. You know the ins and outs of the matter, right? Huang nodded, yes. Yi Xian was silent. Huang said softly, those people in the past are all dead. Yi Xian looked at her lover, Lady beloved, I, Yi Xian, am not a good person. Because if someone dares to harm my loved ones, I will be even more ruthless than you. So, I will only take Lady Huang and Lady Cassiopeia, is that okay? After a moment of silence, beloved said, yes. Let the entire world go? She would not. But if she let two people go, she was willing to compromise. Yi Xian turned to look at Huang and Cassiopeia, both of you, this is all I can do. Cassiopeia hurriedly nodded, thank you, young Master Yi. If she didn't go out, she would die here sooner or later. Now, she was just struggling at death's door because she couldn't resist the power of the curse. Even Huang couldn't resist it in the end. They could only barely delay it for a while. After a long silence, Huang nodded, okay. Yi Xian didn't owe this world anything. She couldn't ask Yi Xian to do anything for this world. Asking him again would be too much. Yi Xian nodded slightly, then let's go. At this moment, Hong Zhao suddenly said, what about me? Yi Xian glanced at Hong Zhao, do we know each other well? Hong Zhao, Yi Xian directly left with Huang and Cassiopeia. At this moment, her lover suddenly said, wait. Yi Xian stopped, he turned to look at her, puzzled. Her lover stared at Yi Xian, you have all my memories. Yi Xian nodded, you also have my memories, we are even. Her lover said angrily, even? How can your memories help me? You've been acting all over your life, if you're not showing off, then you're on the way to show off. What's the value of those messy memories? Yi Xian, her lover suddenly said, I want to erase all your memories about me. Yi Xian hurriedly shook his head, no. Her lover's eyes narrowed slightly, what do you mean? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then said, this memory erasing is very harmful to the body, you can't do this. Of course, he wouldn't let his beloved erase her memories, because he now had all the memories of his beloved's cultivation. All of them. What did this mean? It meant that as long as he was given a little time, he would completely rise. Her lover stared fixedly at Yi Xian, not saying a word. Yi Xian smiled sheepishly, how about this, I give you some valuable memories, then we are even, what do you think? Her lover was expressionless, valuable memories? You mean how to show off? Yi Xian, meanwhile, her lover suddenly said, I cannot erase all your memories about me, but you have to do something for me. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled, what is it? Let me say this first, I'm weak, and I'm afraid of death, so don't ask me to do something that even you can't do. Her lover spoke indifferently, don't worry, I don't need you to do anything, I just want to borrow your sword. Borrow the sword. Yi Xian frowned slightly, why do you want to borrow the sword? Her lover spoke indifferently, just tell me if you want to borrow it or not. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then said, I don't want to borrow it. Her lover was expressionless, then I'll erase all your memories about me. As she spoke, she was about to attack. Meanwhile, Yi Xian hurriedly said, it can be discussed. Discussed. Her lover fell silent for a moment, and then she said, I don't want your sword, I just want to borrow it. If you're worried, you can come with me, and I'll return it to you once I'm done using it. Yi Xian glanced at her. Are you sure? She nodded. You have my memories, so you should know what sort of person I am. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment, and then he said, I can lend it to you, but you have to return it to me once you're done using it. She nodded. All right. Yi Xian turned around to look at Desolation and Jia Yi. Miss Desolation, Miss Jia Yi, both of you can leave first. Desolation hesitated for a moment, and then she said, take care of yourself. As soon as she finished speaking, she left with Jia Yi. She knew that while her lover's strength was terrifying, he definitely wouldn't dare to kill Yi Xian. After Desolation and Jia Yi left, Yi Xian gazed at her lover. Miss Dearest, why do you want to borrow my sword? She spoke indifferently. Come with me. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and left. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he followed after her. His lover brought him out of the world of death. After that, the two of them passed through hundreds of starfields before they arrived at a lake, and there was a restaurant on the surface of the lake. Yi Xian gazed at her lover. Where are we? She didn't speak and just led him to the restaurant. Meanwhile, an old man blocked their path. The old man spoke in a hoarse voice. Miss Dearest, he isn't qualified to enter. Yi Xian's face instantly darkened. She glanced at Yi Xian. Lend me your sword. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. You're just going to leave me here? She gazed at Yi Xian. You can only enter with strength. Yi Xian walked over to the old man and looked him in the eyes. Do you think I'm very weak? The old man gazed at Yi Xian. Yes. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword appeared before the old man. This is a sword that I forged myself. Help me take a look and see if there's anything wrong with it. She gazed at Yi Xian. At this moment, she finally understood what it meant to lie with one's eyes wide open. Doesn't this fellow blush when he lies? The old man's expression changed drastically when he saw the green profound sword in front of Yi Xian. Obviously, he'd sensed how extraordinary the green profound sword was. Yi Xian spoke abruptly. Don't just look at it. Come on, touch it and feel it. As he spoke, he placed the green profound sword in the old man's hand. The old man hesitated for a moment, and then he sensed it. As soon as he did, a sword suddenly flew over from out of nowhere, and then the old man wasn't even able to react before the sword pierced through his forehead. Hiss! The old man was nailed to the spot and couldn't move at all. He was stunned. The old man's eyes opened wide, and his mind went blank. What happened to me? She gazed deeply into the depths of the starry sky, and there was a wisp of a solemn expression in the depths of her eyes. The sword had come from the starry sky, but she didn't know where it had been drawn from. She seemed to have thought of something, and she suddenly gazed at Yi Xian. That fellow asked her to sense the sword just now. When she thought up to this point, she couldn't help but glare coldly at Yi Xian. This human is full of evil tricks. Actually, Yi Xian was quite stunned as well. Because he hadn't expected that Qing would suddenly attack. After all, she wasn't here just now, right? Meanwhile, the old man spoke in a trembling voice. Sir. This. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he drew the path sword. He was just about to put it away when the path sword transformed into a ray of light that vanished into the distance. Yi Xian gazed at the old man and said, Can I go in now? The old man hurriedly said, Yes. Of course. Yi Xian gazed at her and said, Let's go. The two of them walked towards the pavilion. On the way, she suddenly said, Didn't you say that you wouldn't call for help? Yi Xian gazed at her and said, I didn't. He sensed it himself. She fell silent for a short while before she said, You really are a genius. Yi Xian was speechless. After they entered the pavilion, Yi Xian noticed that there were around 10 rooms in the pavilion, and every single one of them had an extremely terrifying formation before it. Yi Xian gazed at her, and she said indifferently, Let's go upstairs. She led Yi Xian up the stairs as she spoke. As they walked up the stairs, Yi Xian suddenly asked, Honey, why do you want to borrow the sword? She replied indifferently, to kill someone. She paused for a moment and said, but I've changed my mind. Yi Xian was just about to ask about it when a ridiculing voice suddenly resounded from upstairs. Aren't you Honey, who lost to me? What? Are you looking for trouble again? Yi Xian looked over and saw a woman in a black dress sitting not too far away, and there was a saber hanging from her waist. Honey suddenly took the green profound sword from Yi Xian's hand, and then she walked over to the woman. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Is she going to do it just like that? Meanwhile, Honey walked over to the woman in a black dress, and she placed the green profound sword in front of her. Come, sense it. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. P.S. Why are there still 3 chapters today? I'm fucking willful. I like it. I'm happy. Unhappy? Hit me then. Chapter 2089. Try sensing it. Yi Xian had a strange expression on his face. He'd thought that Sweetheart would fight the woman in a black dress. Who was this black-dressed woman? Yi Xian sized her up. She was tall, wore a black dress that was black like ink, and her appearance wasn't inferior to Sweetheart's at all. However, the corners of her mouth were curled up slightly from time to time, and it made her seem slightly arrogant. There was a sheathed saber on her waist. The sheath was completely pitch black, and there were countless mysterious characters inscribed on it. Who's she? Yi Xian was quite curious. The lady in the black dress glanced at the Qingxian sword in front of her lover. In the next moment, she narrowed her eyes, and the sheathed long saber on her waist began to tremble slightly. Not only that, but a sharp saber intent enveloped the Qingxian sword. How could the green profound sword endure such provocation? A sword howl resounded as a strand of sword intent shot towards the sheathed saber. Bang! In an instant, the entire pavilion started to tremble violently. However, the pavilion wasn't destroyed. Yi Xian couldn't help but feel quite shocked because it was extraordinarily strong. Meanwhile, the woman's saber was about to leave its sheath, and the green profound sword was about to struggle free from Sweetheart's grasp. They were about to enter into battle. Right at this moment, a voice suddenly resounded. You can't fight here. As soon as this voice resounded, Yi Xian turned around and saw an old man with a pipe in his hand standing at the entrance. Both Sweetheart and the woman frowned slightly when they saw the old man. The old man glanced at the green profound sword in Sweetheart's grasp, and then he spat out a mouthful of smoke. What a good sword. It's peerless in the world. The woman's brows knit together slightly when she heard this. Old bastard, I'm not convinced by your evaluation. The old man grinned. Miss Shilei, don't be. The strength of the owner of this sword far surpasses the creator of this sword. The woman called Shilei spoke indifferently. Is that so? The old man roared with laughter, and then he gazed at Yi Xian. He sized up Yi Xian and said, Young brother, your background isn't simple at all. May I know who your master is? Yi Xian thought for a moment before saying, Tianming. Tianming. The old man frowned slightly. Tianming, as he spoke, a hint of battle intent flashed in his eyes. At the instant this trace of battle intent appeared, his pupils constricted. In the next moment, countless fine strands of sword energy had actually appeared throughout his body, and as these fine strands of sword energy appeared, his body started to vanish inch by inch. The expressions of the other 2 women changed drastically when they witnessed this scene. Yi Xian was also stunned. What was going on? Qing is making a move? It shouldn't be. Qing wouldn't make a move for no reason. At the side, the old man suddenly put his palms together. All heaven suppress me. Boom. In an instant, countless forces converged towards him. However, those forces were unable to suppress the tiny sword chi on his body. The old man hurriedly looked at Yi Xian. Little friend, please put in a good word for me. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, Qing'er, forget it. Meanwhile, the fine strands of sword energy on the old man's body suddenly trembled slightly, and then they vanished as if they'd never existed. On the other hand, the old man was drenched in sweat, and his face was pale as a sheet. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, "Senior?" The old man laughed bitterly, "The life profundity. I never expected that your master would actually be at the life profundity." The life profundity. The expressions of the two women changed drastically when they heard the old man, and their eyes were filled with astonishment as they gazed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian frowned slightly. "The life profundity?" The old man was slightly surprised. "You don't know?" Yi Xian nodded. "I don't." The old man spoke solemnly. "The life profundity. It's a realm of legend. According to legend, anyone who attains this realm can sense any living being that calls their name. No living being can call their name directly." Yi Xian spoke solemnly. "That's not right. There were others who called Qing'er's name earlier, but she didn't attack." The old man laughed bitterly. "When I called her name just now, I had the intention to challenge her." Yi Xian was speechless. However, he was still slightly shocked. What realm is the life profundity? It's actually so mysterious. I can't call her name directly. Meanwhile, the old man spoke solemnly. "I never expected that there would actually be a life profundity realm expert in this world." Yi Xian suddenly asked in his heart, "Xiao Ta, do you think Qing'er is at the life profundity realm?" Xiao Ta fell silent for a moment. "Never measure Big Sister Tian Ming by her realm. Just like those people you met in the past. They said that they could take a blow from Big Sister Tian Ming." "Why did they say that?" "It's because they underestimated Big Sister Tian Ming. Of course, in those people's hearts, they thought that they overestimated Big Sister Tian Ming, but what is the truth? It's like a frog looking at the sky from the bottom of a well. In his eyes, the sky is only as big as the mouth of the well, but in reality?" Speaking up to this point, it sighed in a low voice, "This old man in front of you, in your opinion, is very, very strong, but according to my experience, I'm afraid it won't be long before this old man becomes an ant." Yi Xian didn't understand. "Why?" Xiao Ta was a little helpless. "Why?" "Young master, haven't you noticed? Our realm system has collapsed. From the beginning until now, do you remember how many realms you have cultivated?" Yi Xian fell silent for a moment. "I can't remember." Xiao Ta said, "Isn't that it?" Yi Xian frowned. "Why is it like this?" Xiao Ta said indifferently, "I refuse to answer this question." Yi Xian didn't understand. "Why?" Xiao Ta was silent for a long time. "You have a halo, but I don't necessarily have one. I better be careful with my words. If one day, I, Xiao Ta, die without knowing why, that would be too much of a loss." Yi Xian, at this moment, the old man suddenly said, "Young friend, is this your first time here?" Yi Xian nodded. The old man hesitated, then took out a black card and handed it to Yi Xian. "This is a VIP card. With this card, young friend can come here anytime in the future." Yi Xian was a little curious. "Senior, this place is?" The old man smiled. "Dao Conference." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Dao Conference?" The old man nodded. "To enter the Dao Conference, one must at least be in Prying Profound realm." "Prying Profound?" Yi Xian said in a deep voice. "Above Prying Profound is Life Profound?" The old man shook his head. "No, above Prying Profound is Awareness Profound, and above Awareness Profound is Life Profound." As he spoke, he glanced at the two women beside him. "They are both in Prying Profound realm, and I am half a step into Profound Awareness realm." Yi Xian was silent. The old man smiled. "Young friend, although this Dao Conference is an organization, everyone is free in it. There are no restrictions, and you can withdraw from the Dao Conference at any time. The purpose of this Dao Conference is to gather the top experts of this universe, and then everyone can discuss the Dao or exchange some things that they need. There are no restrictions." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "Senior, I mean, my realm is so low," the old man hurriedly said. "It doesn't matter, this rule is dead, and people are alive." Yi Xian said with a smile, "Then I'm in." The old man was very happy, and immediately said, "Good, young friend, if you need anything in the future, just say it. As long as it is within my ability, I will definitely not refuse." Yi Xian cupped his fists, "Then I thank Senior in advance." The old man smiled, "Don't be too polite, we are all on the same side." Yi Xian, at this time, the old man glanced into the distance. "Two ladies, if you want to fight, please go to another space-time." After speaking, he turned and left. In the room, the two women were silent. At this moment, they were no longer in the mood to fight. Ming Xian. The good man glanced at Yi Xian. "This guy's background is so big?" That Shi Lei suddenly said, "Good man, why, are you here to gang up on me?" The good man said indifferently, "Gang up on you? You think too highly of yourself. Previously, you relied on the saber in your hand to suppress me. Come, let's fight again now." Shi Lei sneered, "Fight then fight." After speaking, the good man directly disappeared from the spot. Yi Xian frowned slightly, he hesitated for a moment, but still chose not to follow. What was there to see when two women fought? The main reason was that he was afraid that the two women's strength was too strong, and it would affect him. Compared to the two women, there was still a huge gap between his current strength. At this time, Xiao Ta said, "Young master, it's time to cultivate." Yi Xian nodded. Cultivate. In this place, he became the little brother again. That won't do. Yi Xian directly entered Xiao Ta, he opened his palm, and the green profound sword appeared in his hand. He slowly closed his eyes, and then carefully felt the white day realm. One sword strike to slay a life. He wanted to cultivate this life slay to the extreme. Apart from that, he also wanted to absorb the good man's memories. The good man's cultivation memories were very useful. In the following time, Yi Xian started a crazy cultivation mode. The white day realm was a special spacetime, and how big was this spacetime? As far as he knew, this was an infinitely big spacetime. In other words, the power of his life slay could be infinitely big. And with the good man's memories, he was very clear about the gap between him and the good man and the other experts of the same level. What he needed the most now was time. Cultivation knew no time. In the blink of an eye, a few dozen years had passed. Of course, only a few days had passed in the outside world. At this moment, he could gather the flowing energy of the entire white day realm into the green profound sword with a single thought. Moreover, he'd made a new breakthrough in the realm of spirit focus. In other words, his soul. Executing one sword strike to slay a life in a calm and focused state was unimaginable. However, Yi Xian didn't stop, and he started to study reversing time. However, he realized that reversing time was much more difficult than going with time. Within Xiao Ta, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. The time within Xiao Ta was reversed, and since he could borrow the flowing energy of the white day realm, why couldn't he borrow the power of time reversing in Xiao Ta? When he thought of this, Yi Xian instantly became excited. It's totally possible. Why didn't I think of this before? Just as Yi Xian was about to give it a try, he frowned and left Xiao Ta. Just as he left Xiao Ta, the good man appeared in front of him. At this moment, the good man was extremely miserable. Not only were her arms gone, but there was also a flying knife between her brows. Yi Xian was stunned, and then said, "You," the good man said hoarsely, "I'm sorry, the sword was taken." Yi Xian frowned slightly, "Taken? You've never fought against that Shi Lei?" The good man's face was extremely ugly. "She has helpers. Go quickly, their target is you." Yi Xian was shocked. What the F***CK? Why am I the target? You. At this moment, a white light suddenly appeared between the good man's brows, and then she slowly fell down. Yi Xian's expression froze. "Xiao Ta. What should I do?" After a moment of silence, Xiao Ta said, "Their target is you. What does it have to do with me, Xiao Ta?" Yi Xian. Chapter 2090. Looking at his lover in his arms, Yi Xian slightly frowned. What to do? Escape? Since the opponent could hurt his lover, it meant that he could not escape at all. Stay here? Yi Xian deeply frowned. The target was him. He had just revealed that he had a life-profound realm expert behind him, so why did the opponent dare to target him? At this moment, an old man walked in. It was the smoking pipe old man from before, Old Ghost. He had no name, so his lover and the others called him Old Ghost. Old Ghost glanced at his lover in Yi Xian's arms. He hesitated for a moment, then said, "My young friend," Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Senior, are you here to let me leave?" Old Ghost bitterly smiled. Yi Xian looked at Old Ghost, "Who is targeting me?" Old Ghost hesitated before saying, "Young Master Lan." Yi Xian slightly frowned, "Young Master Lan?" Old Ghost nodded, "Young Master Yi, have you heard of the Tian family's Zhou clan?" Zhou clan. Yi Xian shook his head and looked at Old Ghost. This Old Ghost had changed the way he addressed him from little friend to young Master Yi. Obviously, he could not stay here any longer. Old Ghost bitterly smiled. The Tian family's Zhou clan is the #1 clan in the metaverse. Saying this, he paused before saying, the Zhou clan also has a life-profound realm expert. Yi Xian was puzzled, why am I his target? Old Ghost said in a deep voice, it should be young Master Ye's sword. Moreover, Lady Shilei is very close to that young Master Lan. Yi Xian slightly nodded, I understand. Saying this, he looked at Old Ghost and smiled, Senior, can you point out a path? Old Ghost hesitated before saying, how about we surrender? Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. Old Ghost bitterly smiled, young Master Yi, I know you have a life-profound realm expert behind you, but there is only one person behind you. The Tian family's Zhou clan is not just one person, they are a colossus. Going against them alone is like throwing an egg against a rock. Yi Xian smiled and said, I don't want to surrender. Senior, I know that they should be outside right now. What I mean is, how can I leave this place safely? Old Ghost was silent. Yi Xian smiled. Why not make a small bet? Old Ghost glanced at Yi Xian. How could he not understand what Yi Xian meant? Should I form a good relationship with him? Old Ghost fell silent. To form this good karma, there is a risk because the ones targeting Yi Xian are the Tian family's Zhou clan. The slightest carelessness could lead to eternal damnation. After a long time, Old Ghost shook his head, young Master Yi, I'm sorry. This old man is powerless. Yi Xian smiled and said, understood. As he spoke, he put his beloved into Xiao Ta's body and walked outside. Without the azure profound sword, he can't sneak away. Since he can't sneak away, then he will leave openly. Seeing Yi Xian walking outside, Old Ghost was silent. He knew that Yi Xian's origin isn't simple. However, no matter how extraordinary it is, can it be compared to the Tian family's Zhou clan? Not to mention a life-profound realm expert, even if there are two of them, they don't have the qualifications to fight against the Tian family's Zhou clan. If you don't surrender, only death awaits. Just as Yi Xian left the pavilion, he saw a man and a woman. The woman is Shilei from before. As for the man, he is wearing a white robe with his long hair draped over his shoulders. He is playing with the azure profound sword in his hand. Behind them, there are two old men in black robes. This man is Zhou Lan. Zhou Lan looked at Yi Xian and smiled, your sword is very good. I want it. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, you are Zhou Lan of the Tian family's Zhou clan? Young? The man's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise, you've heard of me? Yi Xian smiled bitterly, who hasn't heard of young Master Lan's name? Zhou Lan laughed, interesting. As he spoke, he sized up Yi Xian and said, I really like this sword of yours. Yi Xian immediately said, since young Master Lan likes it, then I will give it to you. Zhou Lan smiled, you are very tactful. I like smart people. As he spoke, he sized up the azure profound sword and said, I really like this sword. However, there seems to be a mysterious energy sealing it. I can't use it. You must know what's going on, right? Yi Xian nodded. When my sister forged this sword, she placed a forbidden technique on it. Only she and I can use it. I can use it, but I can't unseal it. If you want to use it, you must sense this sword and contact my sister. Zhou Lan frowned. Your sister? Yi Xian nodded. She's the one who forged this sword. Zhou Lan smiled. I'll contact her. Yi Xian nodded slightly. Meanwhile, Shilei suddenly said, Be careful of a trap. Yi Xian glanced at Shilei and smiled bitterly. Miss Shilei, what trap could there be? He's just using this sword to contact my sister. Could it be that my younger sister could kill young Master Lan from countless star domains away? If that's the case, then it's too ridiculous. Shilei gazed at Yi Xian. You don't seem like an honest person. Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, Zhou Lan suddenly smiled and said, Miss Shilei, you are too cautious. Just as he said, could his sister kill me from countless star fields away? As he spoke, he held the azure profound sword in his right hand and slowly closed his eyes. Shilei hesitated for a moment. She wanted to persuade him, but she didn't in the end. She didn't believe that Zhou Lan could kill Zhou Lan from countless stellar regions away. After all, Zhou Lan was a half-step into the profound knowledge realm. Yi Xian looked at Zhou Lan, hesitated for a moment, and then glanced around. Meanwhile, Zhou Lan suddenly smiled and said, You want to leave? Yi Xian looked at Zhou Lan, and Zhou Lan smiled. I didn't say you could leave. You'd better stay there and not move, understand? Yi Xian hurriedly nodded. Yes. I understand. Zhou Lan smiled slightly and was about to say something when he suddenly looked up into the depths of the starry sky, and a smile appeared on his face. I sensed qi. A sword appeared out of nowhere, and Zhou Lan didn't even have time to react before the sword pierced through his forehead. Bang! In an instant, Zhou Lan's body trembled violently, and his body and soul instantly started to become illusory. Instant kill. The expressions of Shilei and the two black-robed old men behind her instantly changed drastically. One of the black-robed old men said angrily, How presumptuous! How dare you injure my Zhou clan? He hadn't even finished speaking when the sword within Zhou Lan's body suddenly flew out and pierced through his forehead. Hiss! The black-robed old man's voice stopped abruptly. He'd been instantly killed. He hadn't even been able to fight back. Shilei and the other black-robed old man were petrified on the spot. Meanwhile, Yi Xian walked slowly over to Zhou Lan, and then he removed the green profound sword and spatial ring from Zhou Lan's finger. After that, he said, Young Master Lan, can I leave now? Zhou Lan gazed at Yi Xian. If I die, then all 10 of your clans will be annihilated, 10 clans. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I'm really quite afraid if you want to annihilate me, but if you want to annihilate all 10 of my clans. When he spoke up to hear, he chuckled. Zhou Lan stared fixedly at Yi Xian, and his eyes were filled with resentment. Besides resentment, there was a trace of terror as well. Because he noticed that he was really going to die. No one could save him. Meanwhile, Yi Xian turned around and left. However, he'd only taken a few steps when he suddenly gazed at Shilei. Shilei's expression instantly changed drastically when she saw Yi Xian look over, and she instinctively took a few steps back. Yi Xian opened his palm and said, Hand over your spatial ring. Shilei was speechless. Yi Xian's brows knit together slightly while Shilei's expression instantly changed drastically. She hurriedly removed her spatial ring, and then she tapped it with her finger. The spatial ring flew over to Yi Xian. Yi Xian didn't hold back at all. He immediately put the spatial ring away, and then he turned around and left. He was very swift and instantly vanished into the starry sky. He'd fled. Shilei and Zhou Lan's minds were still blank on the spot. Young Master Lan is dead. He was killed with a single swing of the sword. It felt like a dream. On the other side, the old ghost's face was covered in astonishment as well. He hadn't expected such an outcome. Right at this moment, an old man suddenly appeared here. The old man glanced at the surroundings before his gaze descended onto the black-robed old man. What happened? The black-robed old man hurriedly said, "Greetings, third elder." The old man spoke fiercely, "I'm asking you what happened." The black-robed old man's voice trembled. "Young Master Lan was killed." The old man's eyes narrowed slightly. "Who did it?" The black-robed old man's voice trembled. I don't know." A wisp of ghastly killing intent flashed through the third elder's eyes. "Lan was killed right in front of you, yet you say you don't know who killed him?" The black-robed old man spoke bitterly. "Third elder, this is very strange." As he spoke, he told the third elder about what happened just now. The third elder's eyes narrowed when he finished listening to the black-robed old man. A long time passed before he glanced at the surroundings and said, "Send my orders. Anyone who kills these two will be rewarded with 100 star veins. Anyone who can provide their whereabouts will be rewarded with 50 star veins." The black-robed old man bowed slightly. "Understood." As he finished speaking, he retreated. The third elder coldly glanced around, his eyes filled with malevolence. "Who dares to touch the Tian family's Zhou clan?" As he spoke, he was about to leave. At this moment, the old ghost suddenly appeared at the side. He looked at the third elder and said, "Your Excellency, the one who killed young Master Lan should be that woman called Tian Ming." When he said this, he was very careful, and there was not the slightest bit of disrespect in his heart. Facing a life-profound realm expert, even the slightest bit of disrespect would be known by the other party. The reason why he came out was to form a good relationship with the Tian family's Zhou clan, and at the same time, to remind them that there was a life-profound realm expert behind Yi Xian. The third elder frowned slightly. "Tian Ming?" The old ghost nodded. "It was this person who killed young Master Lan across a star field. Because I came into contact with this person before, he should be at the life-profound realm, and this person is behind Yi Xian. Young Master Lan didn't know that Yi Xian was dangerous, so he forcefully tried to sense this person and was killed by this person in the end." The third elder's eyes flashed with malevolence. How could it be life-profound realm? The Tian family's Zhou clan knows all the life-profound realm experts in the Mortal Yuan universe, but I have never heard of this Tian Ming. She. The old ghost hurriedly said, "Third elder, you must not be disrespectful to her, otherwise." The third elder mocked. "What? Can she kill me in a second?" As he spoke, he raised his head and looked around, then he grinned. "Tian Ming? Life profound? If you have the ability, then kill me in a second, come." Before he finished speaking, a sword directly pierced his forehead. His voice stopped abruptly. At the side, the old ghost's face was filled with shock. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. Did I harm him? You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.